It's Monday. Did you see Cruella? Well, it doesn't matter. You're getting a Cruella too, whether you like it or not. I don't think too many people liked it. Cruella DeVille. Cruella DeVille. She doesn't scare you, no evil thing will. Well, me in the morning might scare you. Welcome to Midnight's Edge in the Morning. I'm Tom Connors. With me, as always, is the boss man. How you doing, Andre?
Greetings, everyone. I am good. Thank you very much. How about yourself?
Don't ask. We also have Script Doctor with us this morning. Script Doctor, did you see Cruella, the Devil Wears Prada?
No, but good morning and thanks for joining us today. No, I did not see Cruella. I am a fan of the cast of the film, but the premise just didn't pique my interest.
I can't believe there isn't 100 reviews that are titled that, Cruella, the Devil Wears Prada. But maybe there is, I just didn't look. I have zero fucks to give about this movie, but according to Disney, we all do. We want a sequel. So we'll get into that.
Impressive.
We'll get into that and a whole lot more. Hello and good morning, chat. We've got Valiant Renegade. We got Six. We got... no, I can't say it. Go ahead, Andre.
We got Mags here. We got the
Natasha.
All Casuals. We have Jesse Miller here. Later Scolinus here. And of course, we have Natasha, as you mentioned. So everyone behave in the chat. And we just got the Jack of All Casuals signed up as a new member.
Sweet.
Welcome. Yeah. A new behind-the-scenes video uploaded just a couple of days ago, and Norse mythology coming very, very soon. We even have a couple of super chats that we can bring up on screen before we start with... Oh, we have Valiant Renegade in the chat here as well. Hail, Valiant.
Yeah,
hope you're doing okay. And
but we got a super sticker from Roger H. I believe that's a thumbs up, probably.
Mm-hmm. Yes, probably. Thanks so much for that. And Spider Unlimited says for $9.99. Thank you so much. Andre learned how to throw a Norse axe this weekend with one of my favorite people. We are now a notch closer to being Vikings and honorary Norwegians, if you allow it. That is very cool, and anyone who is skilled at throwing axes can be honorary Norwegians in my book.
You hear that? You got a Norwegian card now.
Yeah,
that's what
do.
If you're white, that makes you even whiter.
Yeah, and now all you have to do is find a whale and eat it.
But you gotta do it shirtless in the cold, right?
And then Stephen Otten says, "Hail Andre, Script, Wrenches, and Midnighters. Let's get back to doing what we do best, making fun of Disney." Yeah. Well, we're going to do plenty of that this morning, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would like to stress that I would like nothing more but to praise Disney for what they're doing and how they're taking over the world. Because traditionally, Disney is a company that, due to its output and the values, or at least many of the values that were portrayed by its creators, was a company that I admired. Disney today, however, is a slightly different matter, and although I do not want to make fun of Disney, sometimes it's kind of difficult not to, because they make it so easy.
It's like seeing your company run by your idiot son-in-law, who you never wanted to have marry your kid.
Yeah,
I'm more depressed than that, because I actually liked Disney, and I thought they were on a upward trajectory, and boy, was I wrong.
No, it's like that. Like, you're the dad who decides, I'm going to retire and I'm going to give it to my kids, and then the one that married into the family, who has no talent at all, has been taking charge and ruining your legacy, and you're just like, can't do anything about it.
Yeah, well, too bad Disney didn't have a legacy to ruin anymore, but like that was ruined back in the 70s.
Yeah, well, I just want to say I'm really, really glad that I have all the original shorts on actually at least the ones that they released, which are like 99%, in the Walt Disney Treasures DVD sets. So like, I'm good. I just wish that they would put them in remastered versions, unedited on Disney Plus. How wouldn't that be something? And
why are they edited on Disney Plus?
Also says hi, gents. Hello, everyone. And what was that, Tom?
So why are they edited on Disney Plus?
I don't know. I think that some of them were too long.
Oh, I don't know about that. I just know that there aren't hardly any on there.
Yeah,
Like that's what pissed me off. Is like I was looking for specific ones, and they have like a handful, but I haven't checked in a while either.
And the few that there are edited to be shorter, and these were shorts already.
Oh, I didn't know they were cut down.
Short from 7 minutes down to 3 minutes. Yeah,
I don't remember that, but okay. Because like I know they had like the original Steamboat Willie, and they had the one with the camper and Goofy, and
that camper with the Goofy. Yeah, that one is cut.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's cut.
Stephanie Janacek, Smuggler's Cantina, sends in $4.99. Says, "Good morning, Midnighters."
Well,
it's a bit of an oxymoron, but hey, we'll take it. It works. Midnighters is not a bad moniker. Did we have any super chats though that we couldn't bring up on the screen from before?
Yeah, let's see. I'm checking. Just give me 1 second here to refresh.
Time's up.
That we got everyone. Oh well, fine. Give me 10 seconds.
Tick tock, tick tock.
Yeah, no, we are all
okay.
Good. We're actually fully caught up to this
all
point.
Right. So the big news is Cruella de Vil Wears Prada is getting a sequel, and you're gonna like it according to Disney. But the question is, has Cruella, the first movie, even done that well? Script? I don't think it has it?
If we're gonna be generous, it's made 90 million worldwide.
Okay.
Which is not bad, but it's got a very interesting aggregate. It's 50% of that is domestic and 50% of that's international, which is kind of weird because you don't really see that such of an even split.
Yeah, that's very rare. Once in a great while, I've seen it in the past, but not very often.
It's been quite a few years.
It's been a day or two,
since you had a split like that.
Now, what was the budget on this though? It was. That's a good question.
That is a good question. I actually haven't checked into that, but let's do a quick little search and see.
For some reason, I think it was like over 100 million.
Yeah, is that this is a movie that I think should have had, by rights, had a greater American box office than international, for the simple reason that the 101 Dalmatians brand is stronger in the States than it is abroad. Of course,
you want to take a guess at the budget?
A big place.
A minimum of 100 million.
200 million.
Oh wow!
Where the fuck did you spend $200 million on this?
No, it's got to be 100 million. But if they're doing 200, I don't know where they're getting that extra 100 million.
Well, it says 100 to 200 most places, but then I've got multiple sources saying it's 200.
That sounds like creative accounting to me.
Oh, I'm sure. I believe it's probably 150 plus another 50.
Of course,
did the two Emmas each take $50 million?
Did what?
Did Emma Thompson and Emma Stone each take $50 million to make this movie?
Maybe. Well, at least probably 10 or 20 each, I bet.
Yeah, or maybe the producers took like a good 70 and filed it as expenses or something. I don't know.
Oh yeah, there's no way they spent that much on this, but that's what they're saying they did.
Yeah, but in order for them to make money, especially in this current climate, they would have to take a worldwide gross of around 300 million. And who would ever announce a sequel when you've technically not even made 50% of your gross profit back?
Well, there's
on paper.
There's the golden question right there, script, and that is, I don't think they're going to make a sequel. If they're they're definitely not going to do it the same way they're doing it now, because clearly, I don't think that the money is there to make one. They're just trying to boost this movie's ego.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I was thinking as well. That we've seen this many times before. A movie is in theaters or even about to hit theaters, and what you do to boost it, you announce a sequel. Because as we spoke about before the show, announcing a sequel is very, very cheap, isn't it? And if it boosts the box office or other earnings by a few millions, maybe even tens of millions, just because people get more invested because they know a sequel coming, that pushes some people that were on the side into coming. well, the studio gets to keep that money, and they don't have to follow through on the sequel if they don't want to. I mean, think back of how many sequels that were announced that just never kind of happened.
Well, the first one that always comes to mind, of course, is Star Trek 4 and how many iterations we've had of that. But that was announced, wasn't it, like the day or two after Star Trek 3 dropped?
Actually, it was it was
or the week before.
It was like 2-3 days before.
Yeah, so this is nothing new. This is standard practice.
It's a simple ploy to suggest to the audience that hasn't seen the movie that the movie is so good they want to get a sequel. So you better go see it while it's in theaters now, and then start the hype train for the inevitable sequel that most likely won't happen. At least not if these numbers stay consistent for the next week or so. There's no financial justification to make a sequel.
Exactly.
Of course, now these are unusual times because this is a movie that quite likely was already in post-production when, shall we say, when everything went off the rails. So this is something that assumed a wide theatrical release. What it's getting is still a wide release, but even a wild release right now is the same number of tickets as a limited release before. And this still didn't blow up the box office because The Conjuring beat the hell out of it in theaters, didn't it?
Yeah, and not only that, for those who watched it at home, they didn't get it free on Disney Plus. It's one of those premium titles. So that's my other question is how many people, A, bothered to pay $30 to see it, and B, how badly did this get pirated? Because, as you know, I'm sure there's a pristine copy out there on the high seas.
Well, I don't know that it would have been, because I'm sure that there must be a pristine pirate or a copy out there for anyone that wants to go to the high seas, which we, of course, do not condone, and we do not recommend that you do. But, of course, if one were to want to do it, that we're not going to tell you not to. But that's like the question. I don't know that the interest is there even, because when you look at the box office and you compare it with other movies that are out right now,
well, that's my point. It's like what
so apples to apples.
Well, what little interest it's being eaten up by that too. That's my point. Is every bad thing that could go wrong for this movie? I mean, it's not rising above it. Look at what Godzilla versus Kong, Mortal Kombat, other films. The now this weekend, The Conjuring. Movies that have actually, been things that people want to see. I haven't seen the problems that this movie's seeing. And sure, those movies had, if it wasn't for the pandemic, Kong versus Godzilla would have been $1 billion movie. We know it, right?
Probably, yeah.
But yeah, this is a situation where, dare I ask, are the studios pulling a bunch of producers on this? Do you guys know what I'm sure Script knows what I mean. Where it's like, oh, we know we're going to lose money on this. We'll release it anyway. And is there some kind of incentive in that in some way through the,
like making more money from a failure than a hit? Yeah. I mean, the joke is that there are ways to do it, but it's through like various insurances and how much you can leverage off the debt and then make the LLC go bankrupt and just let it just kind of dissolve away. I don't know. Maybe. It's fun to speculate. I wish I had someone inside in that area that could probably give me some information, but that's a good speculation to play around with. It's like, yeah, let's spend $100 million to $200 million on a movie that best case scenario does well and it generates a franchise. Worst case scenario, yeah, we pull up producers. And let's run away with the money as fast as we can.
Well, with something like this, that's what I see. Because it's like I'm looking at this and I'm thinking they knew, pandemic or not, this movie's not going to make any money. Like I have a feeling that they knew that this was going to be a stinker because there was no real buzz around it for the 2 years they've been making it. And I remember when the first trailer dropped and everybody's just like, okay. And then the movie comes out and it's gotten moderate. I'd say moderate to lukewarm reviews for the most part. But the thing that sticks out to me and I kind of find funny is when you hear about the reason why Cruella hates puppies, evidently, or dogs in general. And I just can't help but scratch my head and think that is the dumbest thing I've ever fucking heard in a movie. And I don't think, I mean, we all kind of jokingly predicted something like that, and we couldn't believe they would do it. And then the fact that they do it.
No, actually, it's, to be fair, we did not predict that. We predicted that it would be an evil white.
No,
man
I know. I don't mean us. I don't mean us
in
in general, but like there was, most people are like either they're going to find a way for it to be, a man's fault, or somebody jokingly said something at some point about, dogs killing her parents or something like that. And we all laughed about it at some point. I don't remember who said it specifically. I just mean in general. We've all came up with these really bad scenarios of what this movie could be, and it practically is almost all those scenarios, right? But yet you have people that are going, no, you should see it in the context of the movie. And it's like, I don't need to see it in the context of the movie. Why? Because I've seen 101 Dalmatians to know that Cruella didn't give a shit about the dogs. She didn't care about the fucking dogs. She just wanted an exotic vest or a exotic coat. It's like even Simpsons got it better with the whole dogs with the vest thing, because that's what it's about. It has nothing to do, or the shoes or whatever it was that Mr. Burns made, because it had nothing to do with the dogs. It just had to do with the fact that nobody else had a Dalmatian fucking coat. That's why she wanted one. It's about the fashion, not the animal. So I'm like, I don't understand why they had to have her parents killed by dogs.
No, if anything, you could just have her be this like kind of nut job character that finds the organic patterns of fur on animals to be something that she can't replicate. So she just decides to, skin the animals and make the coats themselves. A little bit of an homage to the Corbin film Bucket of Blood. He can't sculpt, so he just kills the people and puts clay over them. It's twisted, but the twisted nature is kind of apropos for some of the Disney villains, at least from the animated films. When I'm looking at the trailers and the stills from Cruella, it feels like it doesn't have a consistent tone. I mean, Tom, you joked earlier about like Cruella Wears Prada. Yeah, that's definitely a very apt observation. It looks like it's another movie that's kind of being wedged into a Disney franchise.
Yeah, and that's what the movie should have been. Let's be real. If you're gonna do this, it should have been that. It should just been like a ripoff of The Devil Wears Prada. It shouldn't have had nothing to do with dogs. All you had to do is at one point like have a little inside joke where she's like, that made out of puppy fur Dalmatian would look amazing. And that's all you have to do is just kind of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. You know what's coming kind of thing. And you just kind of set this woman up as, she's ambitious and but her ambition gets ahead of her. You know what I mean? Like, she gets so wrapped up in this idea of being this, fashionista or whatever that, she gets beyond, what's the word I'm looking for? You know what I mean?
Reproach?
Reproach was what I was going to say, but I didn't know if that was really what I was looking for. But yeah, like to where she's actually going to take it to that extreme. And that's what you should have done with this movie is the first extreme. Where does she start to the point where somebody can get to that point where thinking that killing a bunch of puppies is not that big of a deal? Because that's what makes her one of the best Disney villains is she has no real motivation other than I want that. And I'm going to get it at whatever fucking cost because I'm Cruella de Vil. You know what I mean? That's what makes her evil. And that's what's just great about her.
Led to her success prior to the 101 Dalmatians.
And that's what I'm saying. That's what we need to see. If we're going to show it, do that. Otherwise, I could care less. I hated Maleficent. And I get it. In the words of Brie, these are not made for me. I get that too. So I'm not going to sit there and waste my time watching Cruella expecting to get anything out of it. But if you're going to sit there and try and argue with me that I'm not getting the context out of parents killing her dogs, then I'm going to have to sit there and argue then you clearly don't understand what 101 Dalmatians is even about. Because it has less to do with the fact that she wants the puppies outside of the fact that somebody told her no.
Yeah, no, those are excellent points. But Script, I actually have a question for you because you are in agreement that although none of us have seen the movie in context, but still, just the idea, there is no way that idea can be good. That is an idea that, at least in my opinion, needed to be shut down instantly. I mean, a producer in a pitch meeting need to say, can't do this. How can ideas like this progress all the way to actually being and ending up released? Was there no one who at any stage thought that this is actually ridiculous if we have her parents be offed by Dalmatians?
That's a very good question, and something that's very difficult for filmmakers to mitigate is their excitement when making a movie. even from like the early development stuff, even bad ideas seem like good just because you're so excited that you're actually doing something and getting paid to do it. That sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees. In this case here, what we see is a very blatant example of a low-hanging fruit idea that they just decided to stick with, which is, well, how do we justify Cruella wanting to slaughter puppies? Well, dogs killed her parents. It's like, it's very easy. It's very childish. It's probably coming from a mindset of what would kids think and what would kids understand, as opposed to something a bit more nuanced. And a bit more simplistic of just she had, like, you know, like I suggested, she adores animal patterns, and you know that's the randomness of an animal fur pattern is too difficult to replicate and be believable. Like anyone could do like an interpretation, and Cruella would have the eye be like, nope, that doesn't look real, doesn't look
right,
like
even like tiger stripes or something like that. No,
yeah, tiger stripes, leopard print, any of that type of stuff. And I would say, like, the more interesting idea is that Cruella is the perfectionist. So you either make it real or you don't do it at all, and that kind of could feed into her character that we would see in the cartoon.
And she keeps blurring that line.
Yeah, and the perfectionism could come from basically a bad parents who are like saying you're not good enough. So she, you know, and then you just kind of, you know, lean into what Disney did with these stories, and because they drew from fairy tales, not just because they were public domain stuff, but also because they had a morbidity to them, and like. And you know, just play up on that and make this character. I mean, it's kind of like the Thanos formula. You're not sympathetic to Thanos in the Avengers movies. He's doing something bad, but from his perspective, he has a justification for it, and you can enjoy watching him as a villain. And you should kind of take that approach when you're doing a Cruella film as well. It's like, you don't agree with her methodology, but she has a compelling argument that you understand why she's doing it. And if she's fun and she's chewing up the scenery and the people around her are kind of feeding into that to make it entertaining, then you can get away with it. It's not always to the benefit to make a villain sympathetic just for them to be sympathetic or like an anti-hero. Sometimes it's fun just to have a villain be a villain so that you can like love to hate them, so to speak, and see the threat that they can pose. But again, like back to your question, Andre, the excitement of a film can sometimes blind the creatives in charge from being able to really make sure that what they're doing is putting out the best product that they can.
That's why you need a strong producer to work as a check and a balance, keeps the filmmaker in check.
Well, and I think the other problem they have here with this, because this is becoming like a series of films, and that is this, because this even predates Joker as much as this kind of looks like Lady Joker. Mm-hmm. So it'd be easy just to dismiss it and say, "Oh, Disney's trying to do their version of Joker." No, they've already started this with like,
their version of Harley Quinn,
or Harley Quinn, what have you. Because no, this started before with like Maleficent and stuff like that. This is nothing new. This is the thing they've been trying to do. They're trying to do Wicked. For those who don't know what Wicked is, it's a musical that came out almost 20 years ago.
A musical that came out after the Lion King musical about the origin, so to speak, of the Wicked Witch of the West. Was it?
Yeah, it's basically it's the story of Wizard of Oz. It's a prequel to Wizard of Oz, but it's told from the other perspective of the other witch. And basically it paints Glinda as more of the bad guy. And that's an interesting take on that story. But the difference you have here is you can't do that for everything. You can't do that for Cruella. You know, the most you can do is maybe make like like I was saying before, like her whole thing was she was told no. Maybe that's what it was, is you have a woman who just gets to the point where she will not be able to be told no, and she crosses that line eventually. That you can tell an interesting story and have her relish in the fact that she is a bad person and she loves being that bad person, because that's who Cruella was, and that's why we love characters like the Joker. You know, because he has no compromise when it comes to him being a bad guy. You know, you're never going to see that moment where Joker's like, "Oh no, I better save that puppy." You know, that's not what he does. You know what I mean?
He's going to save the puppy. He's going to use it to kill somebody.
Exactly. You know, he's going to have it for a reason. You know, and we never expected going in to sympathize with Joaquin Phoenix's Joker either. You know, and I think maybe that's another reason why there was so much resistance to that from the quote unquote other side. I hate saying it that way, but it's true. It's like, they're continually trying to make these villains into heroes when it's like, no, these villains are villains for a reason.
Well, they're conflating the concept, which is even the villain is the hero to their own story, but they're not understanding what that perspective means. They're trying to think like draw on what we as a normal audience would recognize as a hero, as someone rising up against an evil power and doing something that is ethically or morally right. And they're trying to conflate that into the villain perspective, where the villain's perspective is that the hero, like from their heroic perspective, is they've been wronged and they're just seeking justice. For an actual heroic story, it's not so much they've been wronged, it's that they're facing difficulties, or they're seeing something around them and they're being proactive to right something overall in general, right a generalized wrong in favor for themselves and for the people that they care about. But the villains is more of a selfish endeavor.
Yeah, and that's the one thing I can. In Guitar Jedi, I mean, you say this, but I don't think you're wrong. I think it's more than just Disney employees. I think a lot of this younger generation, or the people in this mindset, find themselves relating more to villains for reasons, because they paint the idea of what we normally see as a hero as a bad thing, you know, an uncompromisable hero. And that kind of reminds me of what you and Cameron were talking about, Andre, where, you know, the thing with China is, you know, all they want to see is a hero who's a selfless hero on screen, because that's not something they normally see in their everyday life.
No, it's only in their legends, but not in their contemporary art. Yeah. And
we kind of need the same thing here in our own, you know, and that's kind of where we're coming from as far as like a lot of our gripes about this stuff in the last couple of years is whatever happened to just letting Captain America and Superman be Superman and heroes. Why is it such a problem? You know, outside of the fact that they're white men. Well, really, somebody tell me, please.
On the superficial level, people are saying, oh, we can't relate to that. And it's like, well, you're looking at them for their powers, but that's not how you relate to heroes. You relate to heroes for the actions that they do that don't require powers.
Well, not just that. I never related so much as I aspired to be. But anyway.
Well, yeah, you aspire as well. But like, think of it this way. You have someone like Captain America, who he's honest. He's patriotic. He wants to do the right thing. Those things anyone could aspire to do and achieve. You can't grant, like, you won't be able to do things like Captain America, like run 100 miles and never lose breath. Like, that's impossible. But you as an audience member know that, but you're saying, like, I want to be like Captain America. I can't run the 100 and without and maintain breath, but I can at least be an honest person, or I can at least be, you know, that. And that's kind of how you connect and relate to those characters.
Or like stand up for the little guy and stuff like that. Yeah.
Stick up for the little guy. Things that we individually can achieve that gets us a step closer, while fully acknowledging, yes, like Superman, I will never be able to fly, but I could definitely stand up to a bully because Superman does that as well. Like that type of thing. Like those are how you relate to a character. But unfortunately, we do have a generation or two of people that think that the relation of a character has to be far more literal as opposed to aspirational.
No, even the simplicity of standing up for truth, justice, in the American way. You don't have to be Superman to do that.
Exactly.
You know, you don't have to be Spider-Man to know that with great power comes great responsibility. That just goes in, you know, in general, if you're somebody who has responsibility, and period. You know what I mean? Like there's all these things that you can learn from these characters. And I think you hit the nail on the head there, Script. I think that's the problem, is their little egotistical minds relate more to these horrible fucking people that we're not supposed to want to be like, as opposed to the ones we should want to be like. They're rejecting them, and I don't understand. And you said, I mean, it comes to feel like if we could justify the villain's actions, we can justify our actions as well. Exactly. That's exactly my point, and that's the mindset I think a lot of these folks are in. I mean, I could be really stretching it and going down a rabbit hole, Andre, but at the same time, I can't justify any reason for doing this. I mean, I can understand a Joker movie, because Joker can be a very, very interesting character on his own. You don't necessarily need a Batman to make him interesting. Is he more interesting with Batman? Oh, hell yeah. But when you're telling me, I mean, the super chat actually kind of nailed it perfectly here. Where'd it go? I told my mom about thank you, Darius, for this. I told my mom about the Cruella movie. Her first response was she wanted to kill puppies. Like 70-year-old church-going woman's reaction. Exactly.
Yeah, she's like, worse than the Joker. That's
exactly my point. It's like a little difference than the Joker. The Joker, at least you can kind of like Script was saying with Thanos. You don't have to like him, but you can understand where the Joker's coming from. I understood what the Joker was doing by the end of Dark Knight. Right? I knew what he was up to. He was trying to make Batman into a fucking hypocrite. That's all he was trying to do. And did I say I agreed with him? No, but I got what he was up to. You know, like,
yeah. And saw the method to his madness.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, but I agree completely. And again, it's just like flimsy excuses, because the real explanation is, of course, that we need another franchise. The question is, though, to me, are they going to get it? And more specifically, let's just assume for the moment that they actually proceed with the sequel here. I don't know why they would, given that this one is not financially successful, and there's little reason to think that the sequel is going to be more successful. I mean, if anything, where's the sequel to the Aladdin live-action remake? Because
Lion
that
King.
one actually made more than $1 billion. Where's the sequel to that?
So did Lion King. Yeah, exactly. Which I think they both are on the works, but no, I think going back to our initial statement, that's all I think this is. I think this is just to drum up interest in it, because it's probably not selling any kind of the what do you call it, premium deals on Disney Plus, because who's going to pay for something that they can probably get for free
I'd be
online?
shocked if they got as many of those as they were hoping for. Of course, we
No.
could be wrong. Disney aren't sharing their numbers, but I do not think that this is going to account for the relatively limited box office growth that it has so far. And like, how much can it possibly stretch? I mean, how much more can it grow?
You said it was 90 million, right? Script is what it's made so far, and it was split
worldwide
down the middle.
Yep.
Split down the middle. That means they barely brought in 45 million in the US. That ain't going to touch even remotely. Even if the budget was only 100 million, they ain't going to come close, because they got to triple that.
They do, and I predict in about 4 to 5 years, the way the expenses and how internet is expanding into newer markets and new negotiations with currency and what you can advertise where, that it's eventually going to be 4 times that, because it's getting more and more expensive to advertise worldwide than it was 20 years ago. And that should tell you basically how the industry is going to go in a direction. Either they're going to find a cheaper way to advertise internationally, or they're going to realize that in some cases they have to really rail in the budgets, because it's going to cost more to advertise a movie than it is to make one.
It's getting to that point, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what's really interesting. And it also goes into something that not only did Cameron Pasha kind of allude to in the previous video, but also the last time he was on Midnight's Edge in the Morning, but what we were discussing on Twitter the other day, which is that if the best way to sort of build a market and build profit is to focus domestically first, so that the neighboring countries want to peek over the border and be like, hey, what's everybody all in a huff about over here? Maybe we should take a look at this. And then that's how you kind of expand and build up your income and your advertisement. Is you focus on the domestic nature, and then other people can kind of, other people take interest into it. And there's a good model with that, with like anime in Japan. Anime in Japan, they're focusing mostly on locally in Japan, but it's gotten so much of a popularity that has spilled over internationally, and people are now it's expanding, in the West, so to speak. So that's usually really, really good for business. But what we have here is kind of the inverse, where Disney is reaching out to other countries and trying to adopt their culture and integrate it into their properties, as opposed to just advertising what they did best decades before, that made them, one of the most powerful studios in the world. And as a result, we're seeing, dwindling box office, international conflict with messaging and control of business, and it's clearly not working that way. And hopefully that things will steer back to the point where the powers that be decide, let's focus on celebrating what we like here first, and if other countries and other cultures find that appealing, we can then exploit that market. But we should really focus on getting as much money as we can domestically, and not rely just on the foreign box office.
Indeed, but let's assume that they actually proceed with this. What does that say about what kind of movies Disney are planning on going forward? Are we looking for a whole heck of a lot more live action adaptations of animated features, because it certainly looks that way, and the adaptations of them? And what is that going to cost in terms of original projects that Disney wouldn't make instead? Like, for instance, Tron 3 is hardly an original project, but what other things will they now no longer make because they're doing more live action remakes, forcing them through seemingly?
That's a good question, because again, the money's kind of, for lack of a better term, I mean, it's far more complicated than that, but for lack of a better term, the money's all coming from one place, right? And if you're going to be spending $100 to $200 million on a live action remake or sequel of an animated film, that's going to mean that other films are not going to have the budgets that they hope to want in order to make something really great. However, that could be a blessing in disguise. When filmmakers and creatives have less money to work with, it really forces them to be more creative. And as a result, you can probably get something really great out of that. I mean, for instance, Star Wars, originally at the time, it was like $10 to $11 million budget in the 70s, relatively small even by that standards. And it blew up into the box office. Other films had higher budgets, better advertising, around that time, and did not nearly perform as well. But that's just the case. Sometimes a certain level of restriction can be a great boon to creativity. So we might get another renaissance as a result of that, because it does kind of parallel a little bit of what was happening in the 60s and a little bit in the 70s, where some studios were making really high budget films and they weren't bringing in the return. And so lower budget films that had a little bit more of what they could pull off without special effects or grandiose sets or grandiose costumes resonated more with an audience, because they're focusing more on what they could do cheap as opposed to a spectacle. And spectacles are great. They're exciting. They're like the roller coaster, but it's not as satisfying as something that actually can, penetrate your soul, so to speak, and resonate with you every time you watch it, and that comes from not having to rely on the special effects or rely on the initial IP, but on the originality and the ingenuity of making a film first, as opposed to a commercial or advertisement, which I would say a lot of these Disney remakes and live action adaptations kind of are.
Indeed, that's exactly right. It certainly looks that way. And with that, I think we can get into some super chats. And we have some that we can bring up on screen. But before then, I want to go through the classics so we get caught up on those. That 70s rock fan sent us an on-set chair super sticker. So thanks for that. Durao On says for €5. Bonsoir, André, Tom Escript. Have you heard of the new Captain Marvel, Captain Knt? I have not heard of that Captain. No. So
it's Captain. See you next Tuesday.
Because her name's Ariel, and the abbreviation in the Philippines means
Ari, and it means genitals.
That was a Captain America, wasn't it?
Yeah. That's this month's.
I think it means like impressive genitals or something of that nature. That's what I remember reading.
That's what I wanted.
Well, I'm sure that the people who came up with it at Marvel got a good chuckle out of it. I mean, you got to laugh at something. And because when we no longer have the new Warriors to laugh at, we have to get something else, or at least they. I mean, they have to troll the audiences with something else, don't they?
Pretty much. And that's what I've gotten to this point where I really think that's what they're doing. And I said that with some of the High Republic crap. It's gotten to a point where it's like, this shit's so ridiculous that it's like they're almost doing this on purpose because they know nobody's reading it. It's because they know we'll talk about it. Like, that's it. You know what I mean? Like
that's what I think too. That's what I think too. I think that that since their sales have tanked so immensely in favor of manga sales, which are like the only thing selling, and things have gotten so bad that you even have Jedi Conway coming out and saying that the manga writers need to be taken to task and get with the program and incorporate the same kind of values that Marvel has, so that their sales tank too, and Marvel can't compete again. We didn't say those exact words, but that's what he meant. So this is like more of the same thing. I really think that that's just a ploy for attention when you have Filipino Captain Marvel which or Captain America, which is called Captain Impressive Genitals in the Filipino. That's amazing stuff.
Yeah, I actually got the picture.
And no way it was an accident.
Yeah, and Cavatino Che is telling me that in another language, the last name, when broken down, means property and scrotum. So I wonder if that's true or just a funny joke, but it's.
What's sad is it's kind of like the Leox Giassi thing, or Giassi, however they pronounce it. It's almost like they're doing it on purpose. It's like you couldn't have accidentally done this. You know,
no way.
I will say the costume looks pretty decent. I mean, I'm not.
Honestly, it looks like some fan art shit.
Well, it looks better than Captain Commie, though.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Well, he's definitely gone through the laundry.
Yeah.
And we have a Valiant Renegade in the chat who says for $10, thank you so much. With Disney's continued poor box office performance, I have to wonder how much longer they will be able to demand all they have from theaters, like higher shares of revenues, prime multi-week placement, etc. You know, that's actually a really, really good point, Valiant. Because here's like the thing, that after Phase 4 is done and will mostly flop for the most part, you have Cruella that didn't exactly set the box office on flames. What else is it that Disney have coming in the next few years that's going to be guaranteed hits? I mean, a big part of the reason why Disney, more than any other studio, were able to command such a high cut of the theatrical box office gross was because their movies really drove audiences to the theaters so that the moviegoers could buy loads and loads of candy and popcorn, which is the business that the theaters really are in. That's like the only way that happened. But if that isn't true anymore, if audiences don't flock to the theaters the same way, they won't be able to command the same prices or pricing structure as they did before. It's certainly my take on it.
Here's where the 40 chess kind of thing comes in. And this is why I was so adamant before, especially when I seen the independent theaters kind of rise up during this whole thing, where I said I wouldn't be so sure to count them out yet and act like the studios have the upper hand here. What they kind of did was more so play their hand before they should have, is what happened. Because now what they've done is structured the theaters into a position where you just said, they're no longer stuck holding on to these movies for as long as Disney's trying to force them to. And they've all kind of agreed on a 45-day window now? I think it is. Yeah, it's something close to that. But regardless, like, so at first glance, that sounds bad for theaters, but it's not. See, part of their problem was they want to get these movies in and out and churn them out quickly because now they have all these multiplexes. Once a movie's done on that first weekend, it's done. Look at Cruella, great example. It only made $11 million this last weekend. It's dead. It's not going to make any more than that. It's not going to go up. Like that is a very random occurrence in movies where you have a sleeper hit that comes out of nowhere. And I'm trying to think of the last time we've had that happen. Maybe Baby Driver.
Place, the original Quiet
Place. There you go. There's another. Yeah, where you rarely have that occurrence where a movie will either stay or go up. It's practically a unicorn in the film industry. Once a movie hits its height, it goes down from there. There's never a bump up. That's a very rare,
exceedingly rare. Like that's a true black swan event when that happens.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's like each and every single one of those three are in the history books.
The other part too is that if, say, Disney were to try and push more to take more from theaters have a good bargaining chip, which is that we just don't have to take it all and you have to force it on Disney Plus.
Yep.
So then you have this other aggregate, which is, does Disney then put it on Disney Plus and have like the $30 to $50 ticket for the at-home watch, when conversely, if it were in theaters, the family could probably see it for a little cheaper and also be able to see it on a theatrical screen. So you have that thing to kind of balance out. Will some of the theaters be able to say, no, you're not taking 90% of our ticket revenue and leaving us only to be a concessions vendor? You have the streaming service, you go put it there, and then we'll use that screen for something people want to see, and they'll be able to see it for a little cheaper too.
And not just that, it takes away the value of the film, because that's one thing I pointed out early on is, yeah, you can, at first people are going to say, oh, look at this, I can go watch Mortal Kombat right away. But that shine is only going to last for so long, because that's the same problem we ran into in the video industry. And that was, sure, you can keep churning out Tremors movies, but people know they weren't in theaters. So they know what to expect when they get into these things. And if you have a movie like that, like Script just mentioned, like, okay, fine, Disney's like trying to release this movie, but the theater balks at them wanting 90% of the first weekend box office. And especially if you get like the independents that work together, or like AMC or somebody like that who are like, nope, we're not doing it, then the rest might follow suit. And then you're screwed with this $200 million movie that now is no better than a straight to video film, because it has this stigma that the theaters didn't want to take it. Like you're going to run into that kind of a thing too. So again, I'm not so sure that the studios realize the position and the power they just gave back to the theaters. So, I mean, it's going to be an interesting few years, because they've also had a pretty bad relationship in the last year, because, I mean, the studios let it be known that they were not going to give a shit about the theaters. So the theaters are like, all right, we'll become self-sufficient. Yeah.
Well, here's the thing: like some of these studios have built their own infrastructure of a distribution to home network, and they want to dip their fingers in both pies, which I don't blame them for. But if they're going to try and take more from a theater, the theater can say, well, then what's the point of even having us show your film, since we're only going to get like at whatever small percentage, and it's going to be available to the audience at home anyways. We might as well have the theater turn into something that you're not going to get on streaming for quite a while. And so that's the only window you can get it. And then they can negotiate to have better revenue to sustain themselves for that experience. So this actually could be a boon to the independent market. They could forward all the screens, and then, you get good advertising model on social media, and maybe some radio and billboard ads. And then people can go to the theaters to see movies that you won't see on streaming. And then hopefully that'll create interest with the streaming services to bid on distribution for that after the theatrical run. So which will end up helping the independent side of things in the future. Now, this is just a speculation. There's no guarantee that could happen. Right. It would be nice, but I'm just trying to think economically, like what's a good advantage that would help benefit the theaters, but also not and then benefit like newer talent rising up, but also cause a conflict with the streaming companies. Like, why do you want to do the 45-day window and then put it on the streaming service when you already have the infrastructure there and you're taking so much from the theaters? What's the incentive for the theaters to agree to that, really? When it's like, well, again, we could put an original movie on the screen that people will probably see and will make more money off of than putting your thing on and get peanuts. So, well,
and the other proof is in the pudding of the whole Warner deal. And they even kind of confirmed that in recent articles and stuff, where they basically said what brought that to its knees was when Kalar and them announced that we're taking everything day and date to streaming. And that's why this whole Discovery thing happened, is because they fucked up.
The merger, yeah.
They fucked up, and they know they fucked up because they destroyed all their relationships with not just the theaters, but all the talent as well, and that's where Sony and all them are smart, and they're banking on exactly what you just said, Script. Sony's like, all right, well, we're going to soak up all this talent like Tarantino and Nolan and all these other guys that know we're going to put their movies in theaters, and that's going to make them a premium. You know what I mean? Like, that's going to make them that much more of a specialty. The only way you can go see Tarantino's new movie is to go see it in the theater. The only way you can see Christopher Nolan's new movie is go see it in the theater. I'm sure Scorsese and a few other guys are probably going to, kind of lean more towards that. There's certain people that they still want that theatrical experience. And I think the surge we've had since the lockdowns have been lightened and the resurgence of drive-in theaters shows that people want to be entertained and they will go see it. And I keep pointing out, going to the theater is one of the few things that just about anybody can afford to do, no matter what, your status in life is, or if you want to take somebody out on a date, it's a lot cheaper to go see a movie than it is to take them out to a dinner sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, we still bitch about the price of movies, but have you gone to take somebody out to a fancy restaurant lately? It ain't much cheaper. Or a concert.
It's a credit card payment. That's what
exactly. It is. So, I mean, even though it still does cost somebody $50 to take somebody on a date out to a theater, that's still a pretty affordable date for two people who, to do
Yes,
something.
one day of work for one night of fun. Yeah, pretty much.
Exactly. And that's where I think that people underestimated that. And people don't mind sitting at home to see a movie. I'm not saying they won't, but you got something like Godzilla versus Kong out there. People do want to go see that on the big screen. If Star Wars was the franchise it used to be, people would be chomping at the bit for that next Star Wars movie, but they're not.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And with that, let's revisit some of the super chats, because the previous one really spun off out of control, didn't it?
It did, but it also, I was trying to get you back because there is one earlier that mentions AMC's stocks right now that are going down.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. They were a little bit inflated, in my opinion. So I'm not surprised that they are getting normalized again. But moving on with the classic super chats, Daryl the Derelict says for $5, "Hail Midnight's Edge. I ain't no ox more on." Okay, well, very cool. Glad to hear that you're not. And Troy
Not from Stripes or something like that.
Probably.
I know it's from a movie. Help me out there, script.
It's escaping me at the moment. It's probably gonna hit me later on.
Probably. In the meantime, Troy Pacelli says Cruella may get a sequel, but it'll be direct to stream with recast roles, like those old direct to DVD sequels from a decade ago.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised. Wouldn't that be something? I mean, how many Scorpion King movies are there? 7 or something?
Yeah, and the Rock's only in one.
He has one, the first one. And the rest are a bunch of different people in each one.
That's typical. Yeah, that was the typical run. You would do that back in the day. You'd recast the video version, or you'd get like the second or third star, because, yeah, I guarantee if Emma's got a contract for a second film to come back, it's for a lot more than she made for the first one.
Yeah.
That's usually the way these contracts work.
And that's not going to happen with these box office numbers. Of course it could, but it would be financially very irresponsible. And Stephen Otten says for $5, "I will be covering this," meaning the budget, "in my new online class, Creative Accounting 101. And Mari Gowan says for £2 British, "Cruella equals wrong choice of sympathetic protagonist."
Yep.
Yeah, that's for certain.
Yeah, at least with Maleficent, I guess there's some room to kind of finagle. And even that one was like stretching it, because I'm like, I've seen Sleeping Beauty. I don't believe this shit. You could do the same thing with the Wicked Witch from Snow White, and I'd probably have the same reaction. Like, that's the thing. These Disney bad guys are generally so black and white, not to use the Dalmatian pun, that it's very difficult to find that gray area. I'm sure Script knows what I'm talking about from a story. You could use
like the evil stepmother from Cinderella. She would be a great candidate for a movie like that.
Well, yeah.
Like she's evil because she was divorced by another man, and then she found an idiot that would be Cinderella's dad to exploit and make herself feel better.
And to exploit and to rise in the social hierarchy.
Yep.
That honestly probably would make for a better movie, come to think of it. That actually would be much more interesting than Cruella.
And it would fit right in.
Sympathetic though.
you actually could do something.
You could, and it would actually fit in with a lot of their a lot of the stuff they're trying to push in some of these movies.
I'm giving Disney ideas here.
Yeah. Here we go. So this stepmother, she was married to a gorgeous man for love. And then he leaves her for a younger woman, so now she's marrying, Cinderella's dad for financial security.
But you also can make him a dick in some other ways too. There's a lot more ground to stomp there, is what I'm saying, as opposed to somebody like Cruella. Like, you pretty much broke the backbone of that and wrote a better story than we probably got out of the movie we got earlier. Now that sounds more interesting to me. Somebody who just takes their art too far.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, back to super chats. Back to the super chats. Then we have, let's see. John Apocalypse says, "It sounds like Cruella should be an original IP." that's kind of what they're almost trying to spin her off into.
Yeah, same thing with
Yeah.
Maleficent to a point.
Yeah, yeah. And our good friend Mike, the Mexican Iron Man, says for $10. Wait, what? 100 million? 200 million? No way. That would buy you enough tortillas to stack from New York to San Francisco. Is there no shame? Does this include the AMC ticket budget? But I love puppies. Oh yeah, I see what you did there.
Wait, can we do that? Can we fund to have tacos go from New York to San Francisco?
Did he really measure that? That's my question.
That's the question I want to know. Is that possible?
Yeah, because they're pretty thin.
Well, if there's a will, there's a well. Oh,
Well, what if
there's
it's
a
like
well, right.
lengthwise? You know.
Yeah.
And a tortilla.
And Gran Wasu 42 says for €20. Well, thank you so much. Hail Andre, Tom, and Script.
Hail.
Clownfish TV reported that Iger sells stock options from Disney for $100 while he is in office. He knows everything about Disney's numbers, and wouldn't that be a case of illegal insider trade? Actually, we have a video on that is in the process of being edited, that we are going to have released, I don't know exactly when, but before long. But very long story short, this kind of trade has to be cleared by Disney's internal compliance. I would be shocked if there was like a case of insider trading here, or at least something that they could be caught on.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a company that knows how to dot their I's. There's a bigger picture involved here. It involves like changing tax regimes and everything like that. So there may be more to it. He may
And
be
dollar
able
value,
to,
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So he may be able to provide a very compelling reason for why he wants to take out half of his holdings. Because here's like the thing: you say that from Disney for 100 million US, but it's actually less than half. It's 49%, and with that, he can get away with justifying it as something else, and he doesn't even have to be deceitful. It very well could be that there's another reason why he wants to do this now, as we will be covering in a soon-to-be released video. So check out for that before long.
What would you say for Script?
Presidential campaigns are pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, I think part of it is more of him just setting himself up with his own exit package of sorts. But yeah, Valiant Renegade says it sounds like a good video. It does. And hopefully I'll get that edited in the next day or so. But yeah, that's the plan. Hopefully by tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
But that may be a tall order considering today's always a pretty busy day for me, but we'll see.
And then we have, let's see, Strike Force Alpha says for £5, Hollywood doesn't know what nuance is. Oh no, you got that right. And Stephen Otten says, as a fan of Into the Badlands, I refuse to believe that the widow got taken out by a pack of puppies. You can refuse it all you want. According to Disney, that's what happened. And then let's see if we have one that I can bring up on screen here. Let's see. Yes, Dashdies said for $10 Canadian, writers can make villains without boundaries, but good has to be good. This undercuts society because it blurs the line between good and evil, and it's okay to be bad. It's not. It's also lazy AF and unfocused. Yeah, again, I haven't seen the movie, but it doesn't sound like great on paper, does it? And Rambam 3000 says for £5, the problem is these people don't believe in good and evil. They're postmodern moral relativists. That's a good point right there, actually.
Yeah, that's one of the things that, like, postmodernism stole this from another part, which Robert Meyer Burnett kind of paraphrases this, that the universe is inconsequential to our suffering, and it also comes down to the fact that there is no good and evil, only perspective. But the thing is that we have this as a society, we have a shared perspective, so we know what is good and evil. So it's a very complicated measure, and what the postmodernisms do, they try to make it oversimplified when it's actually far more complex, and as a result, you get crap like this, so to speak.
Yeah. And Drive By commented, drove by with $10. Thank you so much. These sympathetic villains begin with the viewpoint of self and how all orbits around them, whereas hero classics like Spider-Man focus objectively on characters' actions and the world impact. Again, it's a very, very good point of view.
Selfless versus selfish. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. That about sums that up. And let's see if here we can get one more. Hypergiver 2 also says, the sympathetic villain is the bane of modern storytelling. It glorifies a character who is doing evil things for selfish reasons. It's not something you should look up to or idealize. Yet today, we do. And Tsukiyomi99 says, as someone who wants a darker and grittier Star Wars, I am not a fan of cute characters like Omega. This is why I was turned off from The Bad Batch.
Oh, yeah.
I never saw it myself, but I see the point.
I see that point too, and I guess it also goes back to some people conflating the tragic villain with and the tragic hero with the sympathetic villain, because like Darth Vader is a tragic hero who becomes a villain and is rescued by his son. That's a very unique type of archetype to explore, and it's not something that can be easily replicated across all other characters. It has to be well thought of and well executed, and it's not just something that that you can rely on for any existing character, or even when you create a new one. Sometimes you just have to focus not so much on what it is that makes them evil, but why they are evil. So, for instance, going back to the other super chat of like selfless versus selfish, that's the core of the character. If you make if you were to rewrite Star Wars and have Luke Skywalker be a very selfish person, by the end he would become a villain and not a hero, and that's your dividing point. It comes down to the character and how they respond to the world around them, as opposed to the world around them informing the character, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, and that's even reflected in Yoda's when he says, you could save your friends, but you sacrifice everything they fight for. Even though Luke is, going to save his friends, that's kind of what Yoda's saying, is you're being selfish.
Yeah, and, you're saving them because they're your friends, not because of necessarily the right thing to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then I want to do a couple of more before we move into the next main topic.
And that is why you fail.
Which is one that just broke. Mr. Tickle Trunk says, for 20 Canadian dollars. Well, thank you so much. It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. It's a quote. We need smarter writing. Norman Bates, HAL 9000, The Thing, or even Sorg weren't sympathetic, but you understood their motives easily.
And another great villain who's like that, and then Harv guy just brought up Magneto. I don't know if I'd so much call him a tragic villain, but he falls into that good gray category where I could understand why they were thinking about doing a Magneto movie. Now it turned into something else completely, like First Class. But hey, the idea that you have this guy who really the only difference between him and Xavier is one thing.
Where they grew up.
Not just that, but I mean, Xavier wants everybody to live together. Magneto wants revenge, on humankind, and wants to destroy humankind. That's the only real difference between the two of them. Otherwise, they kind of do their best to show that Magneto really is not that bad of a guy outside of that.
Well, the other part too is I would say Magneto is just more of an antagonist than an actual villain. I mean, granted, in some interpretations of comics and cartoons, he's very black and white villainy, but he's more of an antagonist because, again, he's a Jewish man who grew up in a time when his culture and race was being exterminated, and so he sees the behavior of an irrational community against another demographic, and that's what motivates him to do what he does. It's actually quite interesting. It's a good example of actually the exception to the rule I said earlier, where the world doesn't necessarily inform the character. So that's something to think of in this case. Like Magneto is doing it kind of both selfishly and selflessly. Like he's putting himself on the line, on the front lines for a cause, but he also has selfish goals with it, which is the preservation of his race, the Homo superior, as he calls them. And the fact that comes butting heads to a guy like Xavier, who, he wants everyone to live together, but Xavier does some shady stuff too. He's also, for lack of a better term, an antagonist as well. It's a very complicated situation. I think that's what's allowed X-Men to be such a lasting and impactful property within our culture.
Yeah. Then Darius Munchausen sends us a super sticker. Thank you so much for that. XSL says sympathy is okay, but anti-heroes should be in sequels. I think I get what you're saying, and I agree with that. If I get what you're saying, like to me, like a great example, if I think what you're getting at there is Guardians of the Galaxy 2, where Yondu, he's one character role in the first film, more of the antagonistic role, but then in the second film it completely changes, and it makes complete sense, and it's it's natural to the character because of the point of view we're given in the two films. But again, there's a lot of these characters we could bring up, but like when it comes to a character like Cruella, it's just it's so like difficult for me to buy into the other side, even if it, but yeah, no, I'm with you on that one, if that's what you mean.
Yeah, and then moving on, we have again, these are classics. We have some modern ones, but we're going to do some.
Yeah, so these are out of order,
first,
guys.
Yeah,
I know
out of order.
Somebody was saying that we missed a super chat, but I think
we haven't missed a single super chat. We just haven't gotten to them yet. So yeah, just a little bit out of order here. Jesse Miller at the Grouse Nest says for $4.99.
Hey, Jesse.
Boy tip number 5. Stick a straw down into your popcorn and then put the butter into the straw, and you get butter on all your popcorn.
Yeah, that's a good tip, but Andre would say you're disgusting.
Yeah, I would. And I also would say, what the hell is wrong with you guys popcorn in America?
He just doesn't understand butter.
Yeah, we don't have it in our popcorn.
We put butter on everything here. We put butter on our butter here.
Yeah, but is it real butter, though?
Well,
yeah,
in the States,
well,
not
if you're smart enough. Well, where I'm from, it's pretty easy to get your hands on real butter, but I can understand in certain areas it's not. But
yeah. No, just like references to like commercials that say, "I can't believe it's not butter."
No, that shit ain't butter. Like Jesse said, it's not even butter. You can order out. Yeah, the shit in the theaters is like that butter.
Looks more like oil,
crap.
actually.
Yeah, it's more of an oil. But no, like actual natural real butter. Oh.
Yeah, I cook with real butter.
Can't beat that shit.
Delicious.
Well, there was this old theater, and I was so sad when it closed because I talked about it before. It was a single screen theater. They used to actually use real butter still on their popcorn. It was like the best ever.
Nice. Okay.
I was so sad when they closed.
Now that we can move on from all the disgusting
butter see,
talk,
everybody likes butter but Andre. See,
says bars are pricey too. So yeah, it's not just cinema. Everything.
Oh
is
yeah,
pricey.
a couple drinks will cost you $50.
Yeah, especially when you have like rapid inflation going on. We're not going to get into that too much, but yeah.
When you're paying $5-10 a drink, 2 people drinking, it adds up pretty quick.
Yeah. And Dash D's says theater has a very real place still. Can you imagine not seeing Private Ryan in a theater? It's just that impactful on the big screen. Yeah, well, anyone that wasn't around when it was in theaters are going to have to if they want to see it. But yeah, that's one movie that absolutely should.
I think that's gotten a few re-releases though.
Yeah.
So. No, and that's another thing. The theaters found themselves making more money off of the re-releases and showing boxing matches and other things like that. So.
And then Straight White Mage says Doctor Doom quadrilogy. Just a thought. And that was a thought that was shared by the powers that be at Fox.
Another villain that actually has a little more depth to him.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they actually had a Doctor Doom movie in development, and that was intended to kickstart the franchise for as long as it got going. But it never happened. because then the Disney acquisition happened, and all of the Fox plans kind of like went into the crapper. Now we can get into the super chats again. Mags says, saw Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark on the big screen over the weekend. Oh, nice. That must be amazing. And she says, it was such a different but fantastic experience. I want more of this. Hell yeah, like bring on the re-releases. I mean,
They've been doing well.
In my part of the world, there's hardly ever any kind of re-releases. So I
was it on the morning show where I discovered that? I can't remember, but I know you probably remember this, Andre, where I noticed that last year the original Halloween made a shit ton of money. It was like in the top 10.
It was on the morning show, yeah.
Yeah, it was in like the top 10 of the year. The original Halloween, because of the re-release on Halloween, made a buttload of money. I think it made almost as much as it did its initial run, if you don't count inflation or something like that. It was like crazy. I'm like, how did nobody notice this? It was crazy. But there is your proof in your pudding that people will go see something if it's something they want to see.
Yeah. Exactly. And then Pilgrim Media says, Andre, my family originates in Villanger, Norway from the early 20th century. Oh, yeah, cool. Yeah, there's so many people in the States that originate from Norway a few generations back. So, very cool. How's your Norwegian?
Guten Tag.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's German, but
I know it is. I know it is. That's the closest I know.
Yeah, it's close enough. Close enough. And then let's see here. Then I can't bring up any more on screen. But Darius Munchausen sent a popcorn super sticker. And it's going to refresh here, see if I missed any. I think we should be all... No, we are not all caught up at all. XSL says, sympathy is okay, but anti-heroes should be in sequels.
Yeah, we got that one. That was where I was talking about Yondu.
Yeah, right. And Willie Woodward says, I hate the term anti-hero. Did we get that one?
Nope, this one we didn't get yet.
I hate the term anti-hero. Heroism is your actions, not your attitude or motivation. You either got sympathetic villains or flawed heroes. Very good point. And then, on a completely different note, Stephanie Yannisex Smuggler's Cantina says, I put real butter on my popcorn. I use coconut oil to pop it. So, there we have some more tips for fat kids. And with that...
we also got one from Dash Dees that just came in as well.
Yeah, let's do that one, and then we move into the next super chat. And he says, for 10 Canadian dollars, the worst thing is to kill, yet in a war, it's okay-ish. If you make a villain, what kind of understanding we can relate to the villain and understand? Cruella wants to make a coat.
Yep.
Yeah, which is not great motivation or anything like that right there. And as for the second main topic of today, this is actually something that broke while we were live.
Oh, yeah.
So I put that into the private chat, Tom, so if you want to bring it up on screen.
Am I supposed to care?
I don't know how many people care at all.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
anyway.
Yay. Amazon renews Wheel of Time for second season before one airs.
Yes, Wheel of Time. And the reason I wanted to bring that up, because this comes to us from Bounding into Comics. And they have covered the story. So it's recently then been announced that Amazon, this would be the same Amazon that is wasting who knows how much money on a more diverse and for contemporary audience.
I think it's up to $500 million now.
It surely has to be more than that. I mean, that's not so much.
That's the last I think they said was 500. Well, that's what they've spent on the production. I don't know what else. That doesn't count ancillary shit.
Yeah. But anyway, another of their really huge fantasy investments is the Wheel of Time series. And this one actually rubs me the wrong way. I have to say, I am not too familiar with the Wheel of Time books. I have never read them. I don't really know what they're about. So I hope it's going to be good for the fans. But I am somewhat skeptical about this one, because this one first came into my radar when I learned that Jennifer Salk, she is the one who was brought in to kind of like clean up Amazon, clean it up politically. She was the one who passed on Conan the Barbarian. And what she went with instead was Wheel of Time. And from what I gather, what I've been told from people I know that are reasonably close to the situation, is that she went with Wheel of Time for much the same reasons that she didn't go with Conan, namely that Wheel of Time was more female-centric, just by way of source material, and it could be made even more female-centric in the adaptation. So this is one where they will be going a little bit on the, shall we say, activist side in the adaptation. I imagine that they must have been reasonably happy with the season 1, unless it was a 2-season order to begin with, which is something that Conan was. Script, what do you think about that? Are they happy about what they've seen of Wheel of Time, since they've greenlit season 2 before even getting any kind of commercial response to the first season?
Well, to be fair, I thought Wheel of Time was originally a 2-season order, like with Conan, and
that's
Yeah,
what
that's what I thought
I'm
too.
thinking. So this is kind of like a
non-story.
bullcrap announcement. This is a non-story.
I think it's a non-story in the sense of what the people on Twitter are doing with it, just to remind people. Because if I recall correctly, I think even Bounding into Comics said when this initially was announced that was for a 2-season order. So I guess this is part of Amazon's effort to drum up interest into the first season. I have the pilot of Wheel of Time script. Wasn't too memorable.
How was it?
Like I
If you could
remember
give
reading the
like
first
just
book in high
general
school.
impressions.
I remember reading the first book in high school, and one of my best friends was absolutely loved it and Lord of the Rings and all that fantasy stuff. And he loved Robert Gordon, I think the name was. But the first
Robert
the
Jordan.
pilot just it wasn't very memorable. I think it starts a little bit before the first book, and it plays around with the lore a little bit. There's some deaths that happen that I think aren't supposed to happen in the way that they do in the novels. I don't know if that's exactly what they ended up filming, because again, this is a script I've had for like a year and a half now. And the scripts are subject to change, especially with long productions. So I don't know. Part of me gets a feeling that it might be a little divisive to fans at the start, and I can only cross my fingers that by the end of the first season, it gets more in line with what the series itself ended up doing. The series itself has its own tone and its own universe, and we can only cross our fingers at this point that Amazon finds that groove to fit in for the fans, and also to bring in a new audience to this world. But
So what you're
I
saying
don't
is
remember
they
much
have,
of the script outside of a couple of weird deaths and some weird dynamic relationships.
but what you're saying is that by the sounds of it, they have taken some liberties.
Yes, which is something to be expected with adaptations of fantasy. There's always going to be some liberties in some direction. This one, I would say, from the script that I read, and if that ends up being what they ended up filming, I would say it probably takes some pretty large liberties with the source.
Very interesting. I wonder if the fans will be pleased about that, or if it's something that is able to remain true to the spirit of the work, if not the letter. I am, of course, not optimistic about this, but I hope for the fans.
I think a lot of it's going to have to do with whether or not the audience that it will gain or get from being on a show is bigger than its initial audience. Because this is not a series I was really aware of before we started reporting on it, as I've seen Some people say in the chat they have no idea what this is. So again, it could be lucky enough that it's one of those more obscure kind of franchises that if the audience it gains on the show is bigger than this initial audience, then a lot of the people that are griping about the show will probably be lost in the mix, which is not a good thing. I'm not saying that at all, because the initial fans should always be respected and at least taken into consideration. But I wouldn't expect that out of this. It doesn't sound like it. And after what we know went down with Conan, or what we can deduce went down with Conan, I don't have any good feelings for anything coming on Amazon. And a lot of us have been really kind of jumpy with what they're doing with Lord of the Rings, and probably rightfully so there too.
I would imagine so. I'm not too optimistic about. Actually, I strike that. I'm not at all optimistic about Lord of the Rings. Not in any way, shape, or form.
No, I'm
just curious. I'm just curious about how the fantasy community is going to take this, because they have their own corner of the internet, which is very huge. Like, it's big. They don't really cross over into other areas that often. But I'm really curious as to how they're going to respond to this. And I mean, I hope it's great for them. Like this, I hope that they get a show that's worthy of the adaptation. But if it isn't, I'm curious to see what their grievances are and how they articulate that, because there's definitely a means to learn from that experience as well.
You could be right, Script. I could be wrong. It could have a much bigger audience than I know of.
Yeah, like I have friends that are in the fantasy community, and there's a lot of them. They just don't kind of some do spread out into other groups and whatnot, but the ones that are there, they're big. Like I've been to fantasy conventions. I've seen authors you would never have heard of that have this huge following that they do speeches, and everyone in there hangs on every word. There's a big community out there in fantasy. They're great people too. I love their passion, and I love the way that they're just like Star Wars fans in some respects. They know the stuff inside out and backwards.
And this could be a thing that gets a lot of attention. It might not be. One thing I know will be, like Natasha said here, this is true. Lord of the Rings people are serious as fuck. I don't think they will like it. Like as far as Lord of the Rings goes, you're going to hear about that.
Yes,
that is a very loud and vocal group, and they let everything, like even the Hobbit didn't get away with it. So, if Will of Time is,
he's a big fan. People prefer his because he published one of the first dictionaries like that we use today. Some of the Lord of the Rings fans are faithful to just that dictionary because of J.R.R. Tolkien's involvement and not any later editions. So, yeah, they have a great passion for that I admire.
Yeah, I mean, there's some people in the chat saying that Wheel of Time is very big in the fantasy community, so I can understand that if I'm wrong on that point. I just never heard of it, and I know a lot of other people had said the same thing, that it's never been anything on their radar. But I don't want to deny any of the fans that it does have, and as I said, they should be respected. Same thing with Lord of the Rings, and I know we're going to hear more about that as that moves along too. So. Yeah. Anything else to say about this, Andre? Because I know you're a bit more up on this than I am, and I don't know about script, but I know you.
I think that Amazon's big investments into fantasy is going to blow up in their face a little bit, because now it's very clear that Jeff Bezos wanted a Game of Thrones series. And they don't have that. They had it, something that could have been in Conan, but Jennifer Salk passed on it. And what they really pushed was Game of Thrones and Wheel of Time instead. And if they're trying to push any of those into Game of Thrones territories, and it does sound a little bit like they might be doing that, certainly with Lord of the Rings, I'm not optimistic about how that's going to work out for them. Really, I am not. But also on that, sorry, carry on.
I was just going to say, Silver Axe here says, Lord of the Rings will be a breaking point for this woke crap in entertainment. Token fans are going to completely reject it. I don't think you're wrong. I think you're right. Because at least The Hobbit, it wasn't so much of a problem of the wokeness. It was just, why are you taking this book and expanding it into this huge nonsensical story that it doesn't need to be? And people just rejected it a lot on that notion. So the fact that they're going to try and wokeify Lord of the Rings, oh my God, I can't wait for the fire that starts with that. But yeah, as Dave the Impaler says, really hope Amazon won't ruin Warhammer 40K show. I don't know. See, Amazon seems to have a bit more.
Do they have a Warhammer 40K show?
For some reason, I think that there was one announced. I could be wrong. I thought there was something to that effect. If there is, though, that's the thing is Amazon seems to have a bit more control over what they put out than, like, say, Netflix. Like Netflix, they tend to seem to farm some stuff out. I don't know, Script, if you can explain to me how that works a little bit more, but it seems to me like Amazon is a bit more hands-on with what they put out as opposed to like Netflix.
Well, my understanding from this is that Amazon it self-produces the shows directly to a degree. Netflix makes contracts with other companies to do their originals, or sometimes buy something that has already been produced and just needs
like Cobra Kai.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Netflix does have their own individual specials that is solely Netflix, but not on the same budget or scale that Amazon is doing. I think Amazon is adding into the market this new model. Yeah.
And that's why when people were talking about, Conan being on Netflix and their other adaptations not working out well, that's where I've said, well, I don't know how much Netflix really controls what gets put on there. They just seem to, like you just said, farm a lot of it out or just buy it after the fact, negative pickup, or, working through other people. I can't think of too many things that Netflix probably has produced on their own. I'm sure there's a handful, but in comparison to Amazon, where like you just said, outside of the few things that Amazon has bought, like Coming to America and stuff like that, they seem to be deep involved in their productions.
Yeah, well, they purchased Coming to America. I think they purchased The Expanse to distribute that.
But I think they were involved with
smaller shows, so to speak.
Yeah, but I think they were involved with the latter seasons of The Expanse too, if I'm not mistaken. After
they purchased it and then produced the last few seasons, and I think they're even in production on season 6 is what's going on.
I think so, something like that. If not, I think they're done after this, but yeah. But yeah, anyway. Yeah. Speaking of Warhammer, though, Dash Attack says, have you thought about Midnight's Edge Gaming? E3 is this weekend. Plenty of juicy conversations to be had about game development. Well, Dash Attack, yeah, we have thought about a Midnight's Edge Gaming channel, but that's about as far as it's gotten so far. I don't know what Andre wants to say about that.
Yeah, no, that's going to be a little bit while in the future. We have the focus right now is Midnight's Edge Espanol, and once that is completely up and running and all of that, that's when we can start focusing on Midnight's Edge Gaming. So we'll be missing this year's E3. I can guarantee you that. Maybe next year. Maybe next year.
Yep. And as far as otherwise gaming, if it's not on the Sega Mega Drive, Andre don't care.
Pretty much. I might not even be aware of it if it's not on the Mega Drive. Luckily, there are new movie or new video games being released on the Mega Drive to this day.
But we do have a few other super chats that came in the meantime. If we want to start grabbing those, I can bring some of them up on screen here.
Yeah,
but I think there was a couple just before that. I think there was 2 or 3 just before that.
Yeah, okay, I can do those that we couldn't bring up.
So anything before Dave the Impaler, I missed. But we got
but we
5 euros from Omar El Begaway. Is that how you say it? Begaway. How do you say that, Andre?
Begaway. Yeah.
Omar Al Begawi, I guess.
And if you said something, then Google deleted it. If not, thank you so much just for the donation. He didn't say anything. So,
well, thank you so much.
And then your fellow Norwegian, Paulus Plain, come in too with 50 Norwegian krona. Says Midnight's Edge show idea. Midnight's Edge out of order Q&A show complete with gavel show thumbnail. Yeah, that's pretty much how we do things around here.
Yeah, speaking of out of order, is that every stream?
Yeah, speaking of out of order, why don't we get back to those 2 or 3 I think that we had to catch up on in between, so then the next few would be in order.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, anyway, thank you, Paris Plain, for that. And tusen tack for that. And Tom, I believe someone tweeted there's something that you couldn't unhear every time I said that. I don't remember exactly what it was.
Gesundheit, I think it was.
No, it wasn't that. It was like something even funnier. But
I don't remember now, but yeah, I have to look.
But yeah, cool it was in any event. This says for $5. Jupiter's Legacy got canned, and I didn't care. Invincible is 20 times better.
Yeah.
Are any of you familiar with either Jupiter's Legacy or Invincible? Because honestly, I'm not familiar with a single one of them.
I saw Invincible, animated adaptation of the comic book from Image. It's quite entertaining. I enjoyed it quite a
Who
bit. I
wrote the
haven't
comic?
seen. Sorry.
Who wrote the comic? It's an Image comic, but that doesn't mean anything. That's like only
Oh,
creator-owned. Who was? Is it Alan Moore or something? That guy's one of them?
No. I know. I gotta Google the name. I keep forgetting the name. But it's Robert Robert Kirkman. That's it. Robert Kirkman wrote this.
Oh, it's Kerman. Okay.
Yeah.
Like the dead guy, not literally dead, but like the zombie thing.
Yes,
That's
who
him,
did
right?
the Walking Dead? Yeah.
Walking Dead. Thank you.
Mhm.
You know, the one I never cared about, as I'm sure you can tell.
Yes. So I enjoyed it. It's got J.K. Simmons as the father. Really cool set of stories. They gave it a little bit more of a current day thing, but not really a 2020 or 2021.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about
aspect.
telling you we should check out.
I haven't seen Jupiter's Legacy yet. I do know Mark Miller was really proud of that show. And it did have like a little bit of a burst on social media during its premiere, but I haven't heard much of anything after that.
Yeah.
Well, evidently it's getting canceled.
Yeah, that might have to do with the binge model or the budget versus its tracking overall. But
For
it
some
was a
reason,
pretty
I remember
expensive
people.
show.
Yeah, for some reason, I remember people bringing up the whole binge aspect of it.
Yeah, Invincible actually didn't have the binge model on Amazon. It was, I think they did the first 3 episodes and then it was weekly after that. So it really, the first 2 episodes and then weekly after that. And yeah, that seems to be a good way. It kind of reminds me of the old network days where if you had your hour-long drama, the pilot would be a 2-hour special, and then every week would be your hour-long show. Star Trek was a Next Generation is a good example of that. And I think like Remington Steele may have done that as well, and a couple other shows in the
Remington Steele.
But that seems to be the model. It seems to be like the tried and true model of what network television is ideal for a streaming service.
Well, not just that. A big part of it is we brought this up with Cobra Kai. You know, you drop it all in one lump sum, and it's really difficult to have a decent kind of ongoing conversation about it. You shoot your wad, and then a week later, we're moved on to the next thing, as opposed to like when, you know, they were doing Mandalorian and things like that, where it was the standard, you know, weekly format that, you know, lasted a lot longer, and it kept people interested longer, and it probably made the audience grow over time too. So did I see Razor Fist in the chat?
Yeah, hail.
Hail.
Oh, hail Razor
How you
Fist,
doing, buddy?
if you're here. Yeah, hey. We have what you think about Sacha Baron Cohen in Red Sonja.
Yeah, if you got a minute, hop
that's
in.
something like you. Yeah, feel free to hop in. We can talk about that.
Oh, actually, I've missed this news, so please enlighten me. I'm curious about this new Red Sonja development.
Yeah. No, that it's rumored. It's rumored that he has been offered the role of Kulan Gath, the sorcerer, who is jointly owned in comics by both Dynamite, who has the Red Sonja license, and Marvel, who has the Conan license. So he's a villain that originated in Conan the Barbarian. In the Marvel universe, he's also fought the X-Men and Doctor Strange and stuff like that. And right now, he's fighting Conan in the current era in Savage Avengers. Sacha Baron Cohen apparently has been offered this role. No, he hasn't accepted yet, so it's not announced. So technically, it's a rumor. But that's what we heard and what we reported on Friday, which only goes to show that the production must be ramping up. So they evidently must have gotten the budget if they're
They're
casting
making offers
roles
for
now.
cast. Yeah.
Yeah. So then apparently this version appears to be happening.
Interesting. Man, yeah, this is news to me. I got to dig into this because I'm curious as to what direction they're going to take Red Sonja, because it's a property that's been in development for 2 decades. It feels like.
Yeah, and since 2007, I think, either 2007 or 2009 is when the modern. I think it was 2009. No. It began in 2007. And it was supposed to be released in 2009 from Robert Rodriguez, starring McGowan, Ross McGowan. That was the original plan. It put out posters at Comic-Con and everything. And that has been in development hell continuously since then, with Megan Fox and a host of others attached. Before we get the current one, of course the black woman, because Red Sonja is a ginger. Can't have that. So it's a black woman playing Red Sonja now.
All right, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the actress. It's just.
I like her too for Bailet.
Oh, right, that would be a good choice too.
Exactly.
Wow. Yeah, because they got to ginger her up. That's just my opinion. That's part of the marketing itself.
Good luck with that. That's going to look interesting. It's certainly not going to look natural. Let's put it that way. There will be absolutely no doubt that she is not the natural ginger. Because, yeah, well, let's not get into that anymore. But yeah, I can ginger her up, but they won't be able to fool anyone. So yeah, and if Razorfist is here and wants to come and enjoy that discussion with us, then go for it. And if not, thanks for dropping by. And we have some more super chats to get into. In the meantime, yeah. Tom, or some more you can bring up on screen, or shall I?
Sure can. I was going to say there was only like 2 or 3. Let's get those first, so then we can get them in order.
Yeah. Okay. Next one's is from. Let's see. Pilgrim Media says for $5, Midnight's Edge. Jeff Bezos, a.k.a. real-life Lex Luthor, I made that up, not him, has a phallic-shaped rocket. What's the psychological implication of that? LOL.
Is it compensating?
Yeah, let's ask Razorfist that question. Greetings, how are you?
Godspeed, everyone. Sorry, it took me a minute to get my setup, going or whatever. I apologize if I sound like I'm speaking from a tin can in the middle of Times Square or something.
No, actually, don't sound too bad at all.
Okay, good, because I don't have my normal microphone. I'm on my laptop. I don't know. But so you guys were talking about, there's a rumor about Red Sonja or whatever?
Yeah, there is. But before then, what do you think about the real-life Lex Luthor, a.k.a. Jeff Bezos, going to space in a phallic-shaped rocket? And what's the implications of that? I figured that question would be right up your alley.
As opposed to a non-phallic-shaped rocket.
I'm getting some Dr. Evil images in my head right now.
Right? I'm like, I must have missed the space launch where it's not a giant cylindrical penis with little ball rockets on the bottom. But
yeah, Mike.
I had not heard about this.
Points that out too. All the rockets are phallic shaped. No, actually, no. It's like. But I think it's something to do with aerodynamics, something that they have discovered more recently, because it used to be like that the tip of a rocket was like sharp and pointy, but they don't look like that anymore. You have exactly the same thing with SpaceX's missiles. They're like bigger at the top, and then they like slim down for like that perfect phallic shape.
Yeah,
it's just that the Amazon ones or the Bezos ones, they have wider girth. So the phallic shape is like more obvious, whereas they're more elongated in the SpaceX ones. But I think it's a aerodynamic thing. Fun observation though.
Yeah, as long as they keep the internal plumbing internal and not put it on the outside for those veiny looks, it's a little better.
I was afraid we're going to get knocked down for showing this bastard. Holy shit!
God, what am I looking at? The thing Glans control to Major Schwanz.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, we're gonna get knocked off the YouTubes for showing this.
I'm like expecting. He kind of looks like that dude, that Brazzers dude. I'm kind of expecting the Brazzers logo in the bottom right corner.
The way he's looking at that rocket there, I don't know.
Right. It's like, yum yum.
Yeah, again, there's something about the girth that makes that one look incredibly suspicious.
You're expecting like a Pringles logo on the side. I
But
don't know.
Tom, before we get into the Red Sonja story, for comparison, if you can bring up a Falcon 9 Heavy.
A Falcon 9 Heavy? Let me see what I can do.
Or just a Falcon 9.
All right.
For comparison, because you'll see that that Elon Musk, he has the same basic shape on his, but again, it's like less girth and more.
Yeah, it's very skinny. It's very skinny.
So that you can't like quite tell the implications like right off the bat that way.
We're like meat gazing with a trillionaire's rocket. What the fuck?
But yeah, actually, when I'm looking at my initial response be like, it's an aerodynamic thing. But just looking at that, there may be more to it.
No, man, I'm old enough to remember the '90s when they were trying to sell us all those cars that looked like electric shavers because they were aerodynamic. You know what I mean? That doesn't look like any Saturn I've ever seen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about that one.
Here, I got the other one here. Here we go. Sorry about that taking so long. Here we go. This is the other one you were talking about, Andre.
Yeah, that's the Elon Musk one.
I think I stuck that up my nose for the COVID test.
Yeah, I was thinking it's like it looks oddly enough because of its cylindrical nature, it looks more like the sperm. Like, does this come out of the Jeff Bezos rocket?
I think so. That or obviously Jeff has more to compensate for, I guess.
Yeah, that's about my thing. That Jeff must have more to compensate for. He has like a little bit more of a one-track mind. It's like, tell me what you talk about, and I'll tell you what.
Elon just wants some more length on his. He's fine with the girth.
Yeah. They're getting into some odd shapes. I don't know. Did you ever see the second Underworld movie?
Yeah,
no,
I saw all of them.
I haven't.
Right. You remember the second Underworld movie where they bang in that barn or whatever?
And and the position
he's like totally fucking her belly button the whole time. Like, unless his cock is shaped like a silly straw, there is no way that is.
Oh, kind of like Tommy Wiseau.
Like, Jesus Christ.
Like, you ever seen The Room with Tommy Wiseau? He's like totally fucking her belly button. Oh yeah.
Oh, there's a nude scene in that? See, I haven't even watched that movie.
You've never seen The Room? Oh my god.
Well, everyone's seen like 75% of it.
You have probably, but like, yeah, there's a sex scene in there where he's like totally fucking her belly button.
Wow.
Or a rib cage.
It's even worse. It maybe.
Wow.
He just wanted to look sexy into sex scenes.
Right. I'm fed up with this whole. But anyways, what is this rumor about Red Sonja?
Okay, we've got a villain now. At least
we'll get back into Rory Mitchell's comment and everything like that later on. But yeah, we got a villain in Red Sonja. So let's get into that. This is a rumor that comes to us from Tom. What's the name of the publication? I can't see right now.
It is the Illuminati.
Thank you, and kudos to Stephanie Yanisek's Smuggler's Cantina for alerting me of their existence. But they have some scoops though, and apparently, so this is not something that we have heard. We're now reporting their scoop, and according to their scoop, so this is again rumor and everything like that, Sacha Baron Cohen has been offered a role in the upcoming Red Sonja movie.
Hold on a minute, Andre. Hold on. You're supposed to say, so take it with a grain of salt.
Okay, fine. So take it with your daily sodium intake.
There you go. It just didn't feel like Midnight's Edge for a minute there. So.
No, that's true. It's important to maintain traditions. But yes, now with grain of salt and other health warnings accounted for, again, this is...
Take it with a bucket of butter.
Right.
But according to the Illuminati, Sacha Baron Cohen has been offered a role in the upcoming Red Sonja, and the role is that of the villain, Cruella Gath. Razor Fist. Are you familiar with Kulan Gath? And if so, what do you think of the idea of Sacha Baron Cohen portraying him?
I have never heard of this character. Am I crazy? Did I miss a book?
No, you did not, because he's not in the books. He's an
I was going to say.
character. But there you have him. There you have him. Kulan Gath. He does not exist in any of the original Robert E. Howard stories, whether they be about Conan or, well, he actually only wrote one with Red Sonja, and that was in Europe in the 16th century. He definitely wasn't in that one. But Roy Thomas created him, and he created him for Conan the Barbarian, the Marvel comic. And since then, the character has been split. So he appears both in the Red Sonja comics, because he's associated with Red Sonja, and he's associated with the wider Marvel universe. So he's a character that is actually owned by Marvel Comics. So they didn't have to wait for the Conan license to revert to them. They've been using him the whole time. They've pitted him against the X-Men and against Doctor Strange and stuff like that. Meanwhile, Dynamite in their Red Sonja comics, since he appeared in Conan and is faced off against Red Sonja numerous times, they can use him. And right now, he is the main villain in Marvel's Savage Avengers, in which Conan the Barbarian is in modern age. So he's quite a diverse villain, and I can best describe him as poor man's Totemon.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Sacha Baron Cohen doesn't have a whole lot going on. If you were going to make a BS article about a Red Sonja movie, would you not include the guy who hasn't had like a real steady hammer home hit since he was dropped from the Queen movie that wound up being a massive smash hit after he left it? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't smell right to me, but that aside, if it was the case, I mean, I don't know that it's terrible casting from like a physical standpoint, even though he's the character in that picture is kind of dressed like the Pope. Sort of.
He's kind of dressed like
the Scarecrow
in the Dark Horse run of the comics. That's again who he reminds me of, like a poor man's Totemon.
Yeah, now that you say that,
yeah,
he's definitely got the crazy eyes of a Sacha Baron Cohen in that animation.
Yeah,
well, yeah, that's the thing is I'm not worried about Sacha. Like he's probably the best thing that we've heard. So we brought this up the other day, Andre. He's like the best thing we've heard so far. This is true.
If this is true, in my opinion, this is the best part of the movie so far. Better than the writer, better than the director, better than the actress. And again, I like the actress, and she would be perfect for Baylet. I'd watch the hell out of her as Baylet. I don't quite buy her as Red Sonja. But if this is true, and again, this is not our scoop. We have not heard it. We're just reporting from the Illuminati. So massive grain of salt here. But if this is true, I think it's brilliant because Sacha Baron Cohen, he's really, really good. I mean, leave his personal politics and stuff like that out of it for a while. I mean, when he's acting in a dramatic role, he's incredible. I mean, he's in this series on Netflix. I forget the name of it right now, but he plays a Jewish spy based on a real story from the 70s. That series is amazing, and he's amazing in it. As he is with most other things where he has like a real dramatic role, he's so good. And he absolutely could pull off something like an evil sorcerer. I mean, again, I'd be all for him playing that role in a Conan series.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. At least he's not a ginger, so he's not going to be replaced with,
yeah, exactly.
Michelle Obama or something.
Yeah, no, there was one significant redhead in the entire Conan extended mythos, and that's Red Sonja. So of course you have to cast her with a black woman.
Well, the only thing that kind of irks me a little bit, aside from, I mean, I'm fine with this, I suppose, because he'd make a good wizard, but I just did a quick check to see what show you were referring to, Andre, and I see on IMDb that someone has announced him as Mandrake the Magician, which I don't buy, because
That was actually announced years ago. That's been a very long time. I remember that. That's like 3-4 years ago. That's not
That
going
sounds like a
anywhere.
movie that is gonna spend an extended stay in development hell.
Yeah.
It has. This actually, what I remember the announcement. It was announced. What was it? 2017, maybe. And so it's been at least like 4 or 5 years in development.
Yeah, but isn't
since then,
Namor
so.
one of the characters that was under Fox though?
Namor under Universal.
Or Universal.
Yeah, he's one of the characters that's shared between Universal and Marvel. But I think I did hear some kind of claim that they got him back.
I was going to say, I think they got him back here a while back because I think the time had come up and they hadn't done anything with him.
Yeah, I think there
the
was
window
like
I think came up.
Window of opportunity closed.
Right. Imagine being Namor. Imagine predating Aquaman by how long, and you still don't have a movie. They came out with an Aquaman movie, which should have bombed just by virtue of being Aquaman, and somehow was a hit. Somehow, I don't know how.
I was going to say Namor is even infinitely more interesting than Aquaman too.
A much more interesting background, but like, and I'd add like most of Aquaman's more interesting moments are like, let's say Namor adjacent a little bit. So it's man, you got to feel for Namor, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, before Jason Momoa, the most Aquaman ever did was slap a fish stick out of a dude's hand. I mean, come on.
No, those Dear Aquaman skits on late night with I keep wanting to say Craig Kilborn, but Craig Ferguson.
Oh God.
Yes.
Anyway, yeah, so I wouldn't put too much stock in that, but that's not a horrible casting choice if that's what they're going with. But that's the most we've heard about this project.
Yeah. You know what makes me think it might be fake?
What's that?
When you look at the writer they have attached to Red Sonja, and her only previous credit is a gardening video or like a landscape architecture video or movie or something like that. And then she's show running like an animated Tomb Raider for Netflix, and she's all about like the activist politics. And you have a director who is all about the gender identity stuff like that. And they of course they found a great actress for Red Sonja, but you know, like she's black and therefore doesn't really fit the part of a ginger, which can't be a coincidence. Looking at all of those things and then casting Sacha Baron Cohen as Cruella Gath, which is actually really piece of inspired great casting. I don't think that these people have it in them to come up with something so smart.
You're right. So you're calling fake news on that basis.
Yeah, like this is too clever for these people.
You're thinking this is fan casting.
Yeah.
Fan casting, yeah.
Could be a fan cast. Could be a wish fulfillment. Could be maybe Sacha Baron Cohen wants the role and he's planted that he was offered it.
Maybe the only reason I kind of put any, and I'm putting very little, like maybe there's something to this, is just the oddballness of the character. You know what I mean, Andre? Like, because there's such a strange goings on with the bad guys in the whatever we want to call it. I wouldn't call it the Conan verse because it's not connected, but there's connections. The Robert E. Howard universe, how they kind of used a lot of the villains in the past. It's almost in line with something like that. So it almost feels like they got the notion that this is where they were going with the script, and then this is some fan casting.
So your figure there's going to be a section where Conan is jerking off on a hotel bed or something.
No. I just mean like with the whole like no, that'd be funny, but like no, like with when the X-Men were over at Fox and there was that whole separation, there was characters that, and same thing with Spider-Man, that both Marvel and Sony or Fox could use that were like that crossed over.
Yeah, like the Kingpin. He was one of those that crossed over. They could use him, or Quicksilver. So with that, and multiple versions of.
And the fact that like in the original Conan movie, they had what's his face, Thulsa Doom.
Yeah, Thulsa Doom. Yeah, because he was under the Cull license, but
exactly
able to use all of those.
And just to me, the only thing that rings like of any kind of this could be true is the fact that it's not even really a Red Sonja villain, but yet that's who they're going to go with. And why would these people just pick that? Because if they were going to make something up, you'd think they would pick somebody who's an actual Red Sonja villain.
That's a good point.
But it makes sense though, because this way they can get a more popular villain. They can get
That's what I mean.
That's actually a Marvel villain.
And if that's the case, how does they manage that? Yeah.
That's a good question, actually, because I don't. That's the thing. It's such an absolute cluster with the ownership of some of these characters, especially with Conan and Red Sonja, where so much of their legacy is wrapped up in Marvel. But then, especially Red Sonja, because the name came from Robert E. Howard, the character really didn't. And yet the character kind of did at the same time, because she's kind of an amalgam of other female characters that are in the Conan stories at the same time.
Very true. Yeah.
Very, very weird situation. So the ownership is all over the place. And I guess you guys would know more about that than I would.
Yeah.
No, you're right. You're dead right, though. That's the thing.
Absolutely.
That this is not exactly Robert E. Howard's Red Sonja. It's more Roy Thomas's.
Right.
And then it also depends on how much they can use from that. I don't know. It's a good question, because the only version we've seen so far has been the one from way back in the 80s. And then we were supposed to get the Robert Rodriguez one that fell apart. And then
let's not forget the Conan 1990 series, in which they had the her name.
I didn't see that. So I didn't know she showed up.
But they had the Playboy model play Red Sonja in.
They actually had Red Sonja proper in it, though.
Yeah. Red Sonja proper. Yeah.
Wow.
It was kind of a It was kind of a Hercules, the Legendary Journeys kind of thing. A little bit.
Well, no. But what I mean is, like in Red Sonja, they couldn't actually have Conan play Conan. You know what I mean? Like, because of the rights bullshit.
Yeah. Right. But no, Tom, you should remember. Well, of course, I don't really expect you to remember, but you did the video. You had another picture of her in there. Yeah, but there's a Red Sonja. There's a TV Red Sonja, and she's better than the movie one, which is of course not saying much, but she's better, and at least she had the proper outfit.
Let's put it this way. I wasn't even aware of that 90s Conan series until I did that retrospective.
Dude, I still see those TV advertisements in my sleep sometimes. It was just this buff pair of like oily man boobs, and he's hammering away at the sword, and he's just saying, "What does not kill you makes you stronger." Premiering on UPN on Saturdays. I'm sure it has a long and healthy life ahead of it.
That was probably another reason is I would like the rural area I lived in. We literally lived too far out of the reach of any UPN. Our local cable wouldn't even carry it.
You lucky bastard.
Yeah. It wasn't until they all transferred, because we had the WB. It wasn't until they all transferred to CW that we had those, but yeah.
Tom, I'm putting a link to the picture in the private chat.
Okay. It's probably the same one I had from before, but yeah.
Probably, because
close to it.
So many around.
Oh, somebody just mentioned the Conan Saturday morning cartoon, too, which
that was
Conan the
also
Adventure,
called,
yeah.
That I vaguely remember.
Conan the Adventurer, the live-action series, and that had the same title, funnily enough.
Yeah. I watched every episode of that, just about. Grey Wolf was the man.
That actually kind of looks almost like a porn parody right there, but I'd watch it.
Well, this is the most.
What's her name? She was on Baywatch. Angelica.
Yeah.
Bridges, I think.
Bridges. Yeah. Krusty Moko got it. Where'd it go? Oh, giggity. Yeah, Krusty Moko.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Angelica Bridges was it? Yeah, she was. So she's the most true to the comics Red Sonja to date, and I think that's probably going to stay that way, because anyone thinks that the new Red Sonja is going to have an outfit anything resembling that. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
How did they manage to take a Xena outfit and remove clothing from it? Like, how does that even? Seriously, she's wearing like the Xena skirt, but it's like it's like a third of a Xena skirt.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I'm really digging that like Renaissance fair sword there, right there. I think I got one of those along with one of those giant turkey legs at the Renaissance Festival one year.
No, this was a costume that was made from the parts left over of Xena's costume. It's like, we just got to cut this off to make it shorter, and then we'll just use these scraps to make Red Sonjas.
Yeah, wow.
Well, given the production quality of the series and the people behind it, I'm not surprised. Actually, there was quite a lot of new image talent behind it, and ironically, they are the ones that are producing the movie.
No, this is what she's going to look like right here.
Yeah, probably. That's not.
Wow.
I mean,
That's the actress.
That's the actress, and how fantastic a Baylet would she make?
But I guarantee you, her outfit is not going to be much different than that. You watch.
No. Of
Oh,
course,
man.
you have to avert the toxic male gaze. So you have to have
How-
proper armor. So we're probably watching what might as well be the first image of Red Sonja right there.
Right. Like, how many episodes in do you think she removes the hood? Like, seriously.
I don't know. It's a movie, but yeah, still.
I'm calling it hood. She's first introduced wearing a hood.
You're
Every
probably
time
right.
with these movies.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
probably right, and we'll clip this video for when it happens in the first trailer or something.
Right?
You can make your prediction. We like
It's called,
doing
like-
that with Camera Passion and stuff, so we'll do that for
Yeah.
you as well.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right, and I do feel like this is probably close to what we're going to see her wearing.
Yeah, part of me is thinking if they're gonna introduce her with a hood, we're probably gonna see an echo of that like Luke Skywalker moment in The Mandalorian or Darth Vader moment in Rogue One. Like there's gonna be that type of shot.
Also, quasi dreadlocks. I don't know what it is with modern movies with strong female protagonist in air quotes, but they love the quasi dreadlocks going on
Yeah.
at the same time. That's going to be a rough watch.
Here's your opening shot or trailer shot, anyway. At least the trailer shot. It's going to be a couple of guys who are going to rob some lady, and they're going to go off screen, and then all of a sudden you're going to hear whomp, 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 boom, and they're all going to come flying back on screen, and then the lady's bag of gold or whatever is going to fly back at her, and then it's going to zoom up, and you're going to do exactly what Razorfist said. It's going to be her in a fucking hood, and it's going to, get lighter and lighter and lighter. She's going to pull back the hood, and it's going to say Red Sonja. Yeah.
Right. I think you just described the Ninja Turtles movie opening from 1990.
It is.
You did, actually. I'm expecting the logo to hit on the screen. Yeah.
Lost the sigh.
Well, here's the thing, though, that many, if people that don't fully understand what they are adapting will sometimes do that. They will take, the origin and key sequences from other movies. I mean, just look at the 2004 Punisher movie starring Tom Jane. The writer and director, Jonathan Hensley, he didn't understand the first thing about the Punisher character, which was obvious from his script and direction and everything. So, he didn't quite get the importance of the Punisher's origin. So what did he do? He replaced it for Mad Max's origin and a Mad Max reference. I wouldn't be surprised if they did something like that here, ripped off the Ninja Turtles from 1990.
Well, I was saying that will be the trailer, but if that's the opening of the film, even better.
Again, I'm not saying that would happen, but wouldn't fully surprise me. And again, I hope for the best. I really, really do. But honestly, just looking at the past catalog of the writer and of the director, and we have a separate video about this, I am not filled with confidence.
The opening of the movie
remain to be convinced.
The opening of the movie is going to be her mother sacrificing herself in some way to save her, so they're both very strong women. And every woman in this movie is going to be the bestest ever.
But Red Sonja's origin, at least from my recollection, is would be considered very contentious for today's kind of politic.
Exactly my point. Why it's going to be what I just said.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. This is it's transparent what they're going to do here. It's going to be, oh god, is anybody here familiar with the Dynamite comics with Red Sonja and Gail Simone? Anybody?
I know.
I avoided those ones. Sorry.
We don't say that name. Don't say that name.
It's going to be that times 10, guys.
Well, of course, because that's going to be the comic run of the comic that they'll look into. They're not going to look into the previous run, which was actually a fairly decent one. They're going to look into the heavy virtue signaling, highly politicized Gail Simone run. I mean, this is the run that was the most praised by the journalists at Cover Comics, and it was so praised that you know that something is off with it.
Right. It's like the Mark Waid Daredevil. That tends to happen is you have these runs that sell 2.5 copies, one to each member of their remaining immediate family, and the press can't get to enough of it. They just oh my god,
covers.
Right, cures cancer. My god, Mark Waid's Daredevil. I mean, god, they couldn't give copies of that comic away, but good luck telling Newsarama that. You know what I mean?
That's probably the one I got.
Oh dear, you poor bastard.
No, I've got the 4-issue run of Daredevil Elektra. Did he work on that one?
Daredevil Elektra? What is
Yeah.
that? Oh, you mean Ultimate Daredevil Elektra?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
Yeah,
that one's not horrendous, but that was years
Yeah,
before.
that was like that was one for like the Twilight audience.
I think they pulled a lot of the stuff from the movie in that. I don't know. I just got a bunch of.
It
I
was
get a lot of
totally
stuff
meant.
gifted to me too.
Yeah, the writer of that, I think, saw the movie and never read any of the other comics and just decided that, hey, I saw the movie. The rest I'll figure out through osmosis.
I got it gifted. I can't say much. I got it gifted to me, like a bunch of New 52 comics and stuff like that.
Right. Which is a shame because, there's all kinds of awesome Daredevil and Elektra comics. That just happens to be one of the mediocre ones. It's not terrible, but, because it came out in 2005 or whatever instead of...
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. It's not absolutely awful, but mostly it's known for the Salvador Larroca art, and art is in quotations here because he mostly just traces.
I remember how crap the art was. That's my recollection of it.
Indeed. Have you seen the comic where he's literally Salvador Larroca? I forget what it's called. Is it Eternals or Infinites? Forget what it was. I think it was Infinites, where he was literally tracing frames of Bruce Willis in Sin City from the DVD.
Oh my God. No, I cannot say that I've seen that.
It was spectacular. He was tracing stills of James Cromwell in Star Trek. It was incredible.
Yeah, this is the one I got here.
Yes, that would be the one. It's not horrendous. I recommend it in the sense that it's not awful, but
yeah. So a ringing endorsement there.
Yeah, I mean, I own every.
You should have that on the reissued paperback.
Quote, it's not horrendous. Razor Fist.
It's not horrendous. Razor Fist. That's quite a ringing.
I wouldn't throw it away.
Let's just say it's not the liner to my ferret's cage right now.
I wouldn't use it as kindling, at least not right away.
Right, exactly. But no, I unfortunately can't say the same thing about the theatrical cut of that movie, but we'll leave that alone.
No, oh my God. The director's version is pretty decent, like the extended cut. I mean, that's one of the cases where an extended version really, really, really did wonders.
Yeah, that and I think the two most dramatic examples of that are Daredevil, director's cut is totally different, and Kingdom of Heaven, which is
that's another one.
My God, 1,000 times better.
The night and difference. Yeah, you have like a handful of those where the extended version really is tremendously much better, and those are absolutely among them on that relatively exclusive list. And then, of course, you have like those that are fake just to re-release, which was very popular for especially Fox to make like unrated editions that were just like, we'll put in 30 seconds and then we won't submit it to the MPAA and we'll call it unrated. Although really, it's not what you think it is.
Well, I got the Elektra movie was kind of that. They actually,
that was one of those.
Believe it or not, it is better than the theatrical cut, the director's cut of that movie. And here's why: because Terrence fucking Stamp plays Stick in that. He's not in the theatrical cut. They bring in Terrence Stamp to play Stick. Yes. Oh my God.
I've never seen it, so I wouldn't know. I never saw that movie.
I have it, but I haven't watched the director's cut yet. I've only seen the original
so
movie.
if you watch Daredevil, the series, which you all should, and shame on you heathens if you haven't yet, it's an excellent series. Scott Glenn's character, Stick, is played by Terrence Stamp in that movie, and he's really good too.
Because did they even show Stick in Daredevil? I don't think they did.
Nope.
No,
they did Daredevil.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah.
Which makes the Elektra movie even more ridiculous, because in the Daredevil movie, he's just a blind kid, and suddenly he can do full backflips on the sidewalk now that he has radar powers. I don't know how getting hit in the face with cancerous chemicals gives you the ability to do a full backflip and land on your feet, but apparently that's a thing.
It made Ninja Turtles.
Yes, exactly. Stick didn't train him at all in that movie, and then he just appears out of nowhere in Elektra.
I believe that particular kind of like jumping, like that backflip, is called salto mortale, which is Spanish, meaning this will kill you.
That's the part of the movie that still isn't improved with the director's cut, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, there's a lot of movies I would say the extended or unrated or a director's cut is just no. Especially now that I edit. It's like a lot of times I'm like, I would have cut that out. I'd have cut that out. Like, yeah.
Right. Justice League. But anyway.
Oh, God. Cut that whole thing.
Hey, guys. We have a really, really slow movie that people complained about being slow. You know what would improve this? More
Another
slow
hour.
scenes. Yeah. Another hour of content. Please, let's make that happen.
More padding. Get it in there.
Yeah, we'd like this thing to, definitely.
No, I was one of those
don't-
few people, Razor, because I know what you're talking, like the Snyder cut. I was like, yeah, I might have enjoyed this better if they actually gave me a theatrical cut of this. Like, I might have enjoyed it.
Seriously.
I did. That's what I said in our review.
And I feel like that now for a lot of superhero movies, to be honest. This kind of ropes us back along to the topic, actually, is how long do you think Red Sonja is going to be? Is it gonna be another modern comic movie where it's like 3 hours
No.
by default?
No, that would shock me.
I think it's going to be more in line with the last Conan movie, only more whammon powers.
How long was that? I don't even
2
remember.
hours, I think.
Yeah, that was around 2 hours.
Which
That's
is still too long.
Yeah.
way too long.
The average
Much-
for these is an hour, 45 minutes to 2 hours and 15.
Yeah. I think it's going to be right around in that age or that range, because this movie, you can like say what you want about like the writer and director, but it's still an Avi Lerner production. He is still the producer behind it. And no movie is going to come out on his watch that is significantly more than 2 hours long.
Good.
He's an
Well,
old
that-
schooler. Get more
Good.
screenings in that way.
Yep.
For Christ's sake. Look, I loved Logan. I thought it was a great movie, but do we need almost 3 hours of Wolverine? I don't, and I worked in a comic book store, for Christ's sake. Like, I think we could have probably cut out some of those moping and talking to the little girl scenes, probably.
You might be right, but I did enjoy that one quite a bit. But again, to me, it's
I
all
thought
on
it
the
was fine.
content.
I did
don't-
too.
Yeah, I don't.
I mean, I
mind
can
like
watch a
that
movie
longer,
like
but-
Goodfellas or Scarface that's almost 3 hours long, and it just goes by and you don't even notice it. But then, yeah, like something like the Justice League, you're feeling every goddamn minute of that thing.
Yeah, and I do think it's actually. I think at the beginning they started to make these things longer because they thought it was more artistic. You know, they're more of an auteur. All the really, really long epic movies from the 60s that competent, sane people made, those were really long. So if we make really long movies, it's almost like we're really talented. But I think it's actually progressed to the point where Raymond Chandler's old quote from like the 30s or whatever, I forget what he said this about. He's probably talking about fiction. But he said, you know, they write them long because they can't write them short. I honestly think it's gotten to that point. There's like such a school of writing these movies, and the writers have such a dearth of talent. I honestly don't think they could write a script as taut and, you know, action-packed and direct as, you know, the old pulps were written back in the day or whatever.
Well, we are lucky enough that we actually have a writer here among us who can maybe chime in on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm of the philosophy of the bare essentials for a script, because that's where you can actually have fun with the flourishing of character and whatnot. If you have to take, you know, 5 pages to explain one action, you're clearly not understanding the action you have to explain. Like, it's very important to be quick and articulate with what you're doing on the page. Not just for like story economy. That's what I want to get around to, and I'm stumbling at this just because I'm a little dehydrated. But story economy is really, really important. If you're gonna, like, the rule that we have in screenwriting is don't say in 10 sentences what you can say in 2, and that's the philosophy. But you also get these artistic people, and I air quote that, who think that no, if we draw out moments and make people feel, that's going to resonate more. It's like, well, it's not about that. It's how impactful can you make the action to make people feel, as opposed to how long it takes for people to feel that action.
Yeah, I agree. And that's my, you know, I'm a big fan of Noir. I do a series about Noir. Those, you know, there's this feeling now, it's kind of like just it is an outright falsity that, you know, those old movies were like art films or whatever. No, those are like B movies. Those are like those movies clocked in barely over an hour sometimes. You know, they were like an hour and 10 or something, because they were the second movie on a bill, along with a main feature that was 2 hours long or almost 2 hours long or whatever.
Yeah,
And
they were more like shoot from the hip films too. That was like what I really loved about the noirs.
Yeah, and that's, you know, now it's funny now in 2021 we have all these movies. I mean, even superhero movies that we're talking about. When this Red Sonja movie comes out, at some point you can mark my words, the term noir will be somehow uttered by the director or the cinematographer or what, because it's like the buzzword du jour in Hollywood among filmmaking types. And the people, what I'm saying is all the people who are kind of inspired by noir in 2021 they're all making like 3 hour long epics. They're all making like, you know what I mean? There's Blade Runner 2049, which I know a lot of people like, and I wouldn't wipe my ass with, was like, 3 hours and change? Something like that, or almost 3 hours. You know, that's not noir. That it needs to be an hour, or it needs to be an hour 30 at most. You know what I mean?
It's one-dimensional noir at best if you want to be very favorable. Like, it's just, you think just because movies back in the day were black and white and old that they were also really long. It's like, nope, not really. I mean, like you went to the theater to see a couple of shows in a night, but you're seeing like one movie, maybe a Columbia Three Stooges sketch in between, and then another movie after that. That was your event, but it wasn't one giant long picture. Yeah, you didn't get those epics till like the 60s with like Lawrence of Arabia or something, or Cleopatra for another comparison.
Yeah, absolutely.
Indeed, yeah, that's are some great points right there, and it's quite a striking difference between now and then in filmmaking. I think we've covered the Red Sonja news as much as we can, given that it might even be fake news and non-news. But we have a couple of super chats to get back into, so maybe we can do that for a little bit. And the next one we have was let's see, Orville Nation. Hey, greetings, Orville Nation. Love your content. Sends a $10 super sticker of like the pear guy, and Mephitic miasma. Oh, here's a good question for you to Razorfist. Mephitic miasma, I think is pronounced. Says for $10. Wheel of Time lore. Men with powers go insane. Women with powers have an organization that hunts them down and removes their power. Put this lore into the hands of a feminist. And this ties into what we said earlier, because we broke the scoop, or no, we didn't break, but we brought up the scoop from Bounding into Comics, that Amazon has renewed for the Wheel of Time for a second series or a second season, which is kind of like a non-news because it was purchased in like a 2-season deal right off the bat.
Right.
But this then would be the series that Jennifer Salk skipped Amazon's Conan series in favor of, specifically because it was going to be more, shall we say, female-centric. That was a big part of the reason. So it was female-centric to begin with, and it was made even more female-centric in the adaptation. Script Doctor reports that some liberties were taken in the pilot episode, at least, that the fans might take issue with. So, Razorfist, how excited are you for the Wheel of Time?
Oh, I am turgid. I can't wait for it. It's fantastic. I
love it when men use that word, turgid.
Engorged. No, I've only read the graphic novel adaptation of Wheel of Time. I have had Wheel of Time recommended to me a number of times. And when I pick up the book and it's roughly the circumference of a family Bible, I put it back down. But Robert Jordan was never my favorite anyways. So you can imagine, compound my disinterest with, this is on Amazon, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is correct.
And we've already heard all the wonderful news coming out about Lord of the Rings, which is
That's
their
the
big...
second thing I wanted to ask you.
Oh, yeah, we'll talk about that, I'm sure. Good luck stopping me from talking about it. But that's their big multi-billion-dollar blockbuster, and they're absolutely beshitting the property on that. I mean, we don't even have to speculate almost anymore, just with some of the news that is confirmed. I can't imagine what they're going to do with Wheel of Time. It's already, look, it already had that subtext to it. I mean, I think that message was kind of inherent to it, even years before all the social justice and social engineering and so forth that really hit, pardon me, about 4 or 5 years ago. I remember people were starting to sour. A lot of people were starting to sour on Wheel of Time because of the sort of Mary Sue-itude of some of the characters in it, and the way, like, the almost unrealistic way in which women are depicted sometimes. And I know that sounds silly for a fantasy story, but when we talk about realism and fantasy, we're talking within the relative confines of the world. Did I mention I'm a fantasy author now, by the way?
Yes, you have the Long Moonlight, right?
Thank you. But yeah, like when we're talking about realism, we just mean within the consistent logic of the world, right? Robert Jordan's characters do come off a little bit like, you don't want to say self-inserts because that's a little creepy, but there's a bit of a Mary Sue aspect to some of the characters.
Mary Sue. Mary Sue.
No, and is there anything else like about the series? Like, is it just a flat out straight adaptation of the book, and it's going to take like a chunk of the story? They're going to do it Game of Thrones style? I
have the pilot script, and it's not very memorable. I do know that it took some liberties. It doesn't start at the same point that the first book started, and I only ever read the first book. One of my best friends in high school, he read as much as he could of this. He just loved it. But yeah, it definitely it's very much female dominant. But I think it's a setup to what then happens to the book. And part of me, like just with what you were just saying earlier, was reminding me of, or at least giving me concerns that they might adapt. This might be an adaptation in the same realm of how Seth Rogen adapted Preacher for that series, where it takes place before the main part of the story, really. And it just goes off the rails, and I'm worried that probably will be the case, mostly on behest of the fans of that series, because the last thing you really want to do is upset the core base that made it that made that series worthy of it being adapted for another medium.
Yeah, I don't see. I'm not married enough to the IP to feel any particular indignation, but it's still, you can see where this is going from space.
Yeah, indeed. So, where do you think it's going to go, since we can see it from space? Let's spell it out for everyone.
I mean, transparently, this is going to have a narrative. I mean, look, you don't cancel a bankable property like Conan and replace it with a female-dominant fantasy story, given some of Amazon's political idea. I mean, look, guys, look what happened to Man in the High Castle, which I loved the first season of Man in the High Castle. I thought it was great. It came out right around the same time as Daredevil, if I remember correctly, and I loved both series almost as much. By the second season, it was kind of running out of gas in terms of the premise, but it was still relatively watchable. Then I remember season 3 being advertised. It was right as the election stuff had happened, and Antifa were roving the streets, and their ad campaign, just shockingly tone-deaf ad campaign, was stand up and hashtag resist. And it was like, you might as well have had the big black fist logo on the screen. You know what I mean? And that was a pretty strong indication of where the series went ideologically and politically after that. They got a lot less subtle with things that had been subtle before that. And then, of course, they just petered out and ran out of gas. And by the time that series was canceled, it was a mercy. You know what I mean? It was almost impossible to remember how good it had been. Now, take that and start from season 3 or 4 of Man in the High Castle and work your way backwards. Like that. That's kind of what we're doing here, basically, with Wheel of Time.
You know, you're not the first person I heard say something similar about that.
Man in the High Castle?
Yeah, I think I don't know if it was Gary or somebody like that said something almost exactly the same thing about it, how it started out so great and all that. But yeah, so I've heard that before.
Produced by Ridley Scott. He even storyboarded some of it. There's gorgeous cinematography in it to start with. I mean, it was a really, really good show to begin with. And then they started to depart from the books a lot, kind of went down the Game of Thrones path, to be honest, a little bit, where, we ran out of source material because the original story's not that long, right? And they started getting into all this really funky shit that was vaguely Philip K. Dickian, but wasn't actually in the book. And totally did a pirouette off of a cliff, narratively speaking. I can just imagine starting from season 4 of that, where it was an absolute shambles and disarray. I mean, you can see the divergence in terms of the ratings of the seasons on IMDb and understand what I'm talking about here. We're starting from the end here. It's not going to get any better than that.
Yeah, it doesn't sound too promising.
Yeah, no, it really does not sound promising at all. So, I feel bad for the fans of those properties in question, and I'm glad I'm not among them.
Yeah.
As am I, to giving up on properties.
No shit, fuck it anymore. I'm done with everything. We got Paulie in the chat. How you doing, buddy? You got a link if you ever want to pop in. But speaking of the chat, I think we had a couple super chats. We want to grab some of those real quick, Andre. If you got
yes, we did.
Raise their fist.
We did. Let's see where we were. Oh yeah, here we were. Zontar says for $2 Canadian, Amazon's $8 a month is for much more than just video. Yeah, that may well be the case. And then we have, let us say here, because I just had to refresh to get into it. Yeah, here we go. Diego Flores says for $10 or 10 Peruvian sols, Amazon has nothing to do with the Eisenhorn show. Just the creator of The Man in the High Castle is in charge, and since it's a primer series, Amazon is mentioned constantly. Okay. And Hypergiver 2 says Natasha is correct. Lord of the Rings fans are far more rabid and passionate than Star Wars fans. Mess up our stuff and we'll mount heads on the wall of Minas Tirith. Yeah, it's going to be fun to see how the fans of Lord of the Rings will respond to all of that.
I shall not pass.
Forward to that already. And Dashti says, ever thought about ME equals masculine edge, hosted by a manly man centered on knife collecting firefighting, EMS and military history? Asking for a friend.
You never know.
A former defense guy. Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see what we can do about that. Mr. Tickle Trunk watches the rocket vibrate through the atmosphere. Of course. And Emperor.
I wonder when the heat tiles fall off, do they bleed? Is there? Anyway, let's continue.
It's like chafing.
Yeah. Let's continue, because now people are commenting on the rockets. That's where we are right now in the chronology.
Rocket Man.
I know. I knew somebody was gonna say Rocket Man.
Yeah. And Emperor Billy Ritchie says for $4.99, it's called New Shepard. It's a suborbital rocket. The tip of the rocket is where the crew will be in, and it's going to cost you $300,000 a seat.
So they're just the tip?
Yeah, that is if you want to be in that particular tip.
Just the tip.
So that's a different matter. But yeah, the rest of it is probably like fuel and stuff like that.
These jokes write themselves. I can't help it here.
Yeah. Well, so Michael Miller agrees with you, because he says Jeff has the man right. Elon has the anal beads. And points out that she's fine with a giant phallic-shaped rocket. So, yeah, that's good to know. And Stephen Otten also says it's not the shape of the rocket, but what one does with it.
Well, according to Bezos, it's the girth.
Right.
Well, we know that the rocket is Jewish because they've all been had a moil on the archetypal.
Stop that now.
I think it's okay. I think script could get away with it, but I'm not going to.
No, the rocket has had its bris, so it's all good.
It wasn't a christening, it was a bris, yeah.
They keep trying to launch a black one, but it keeps snapping off. It's so long before it leaves. Anyway, so let's continue.
My big black rocket keeps breaking in half.
Yeah. And Steve York says for £5 in honor of that Jeff guy's space trip, I am creating a rocket-shaped strap-on. So when he gets into orbit, he can go and screw himself.
Well, the strap-on is the name of the second rocket.
Right.
Yeah, the one that's going to couple with the other one up in,
Gonna dock
in there. Yeah.
I'm just worried about the competition from China at this point because it's just going to be a smaller, more efficient design, but not really going to have much of the power.
Right.
Your penis, a very immense penis.
So small.
American penises are so big. That's from South Park before anybody cancels me.
Right.
And XSL says...
I don't know, all the Chinese rockets look the same to me.
Oh!
I kid.
Yeah, well, again, these jokes just write themselves, don't they? Yeah. And moving on from there to something completely different, XSL says studios need a grade A actor to carry the shows. If you're referring to Lord of the Rings and Wheel of Time, I have a feeling they're going to need much more than that.
Right.
But yeah. This says for $10, Invincible was better than Omni. Man beat his son's face saying, "What's another 17 years? I'll just make another kid," while turning his kid's face into hamburger meat.
Ouch.
Well, that was pretty nasty of him, I would say. But again,
that's a brutal scene in the Invincible cartoon series.
Okay, I haven't seen it.
That's like the old Bill Cosby line, I brought you in this world, I'll take you out and make another one look just like you.
Oh, I thought it was I brought you a margarita.
Oh! Again, they just write themselves. We can't help it here, folks.
Yeah. And Willie Woodwood says for $4.99, script, a reason for all the reboots and remakes was lazy marketing. IYO, how do you think HW can improve it so that more original IP can flourish?
That's a tricky question. My experience with the town is that advertising companies and marketers have a lot more say in how things get greenlit than they ever did before. And again, they are rather lazy these days. They don't take new IP as a challenge to try and make this the best thing in the world. They look at something and just casually determine, that won't sell because of this, or this. And instead of saying, you know what, we can make a product out of this. We got something here. The work is done. And for myself as a writer, whenever I'm pitching something, you have to say, oh, we've got this actor attached. That's got this popularity to it. It's got, a book deal was made. So someone's writing a companion book to it that's going to be released during production. So that will help bolster its reach out. It's like a whole bunch of convoluted stuff just to make the people who are actually physically making the production do more of the actual heavy lifting than the marketing department itself to just spread the word. It's a very backwards model, and that's where I think the first part of the change has to come is basically the studios that are footing the bill have to say, listen, we're paying you to advertise, be creative and freaking advertise, because you shouldn't be telling us what we should be making. We should be making stuff, and you should be telling the audience that they should go see it. And that's kind of how the relationship should be. But it's a little bit inverted at the moment.
Yeah, I think does it also kind of go with like like I always say, they're afraid to try anything new. They want to keep revamping the same old thing because it's easier to sell a franchise than it is,
Well,
like
the work's been done. Yeah, the work's been done. That's the thing. It's when it comes to intellectual property, especially popular stuff, the work has been done. So they don't have to create anything new. When you bring a new idea to a marketer, they look at this and be like, well, I don't know how to sell this. And you have to ask them, well, what'd you go to school for? Like, did you not learn what it is? Like, why are you saying you can't sell something? You're a marketer. That's your entire job, is to sell.
And then the death of the movie star, I think, is the other side of it.
That's a big factor too. And then on top of that, external investments. So when a lot of people are throwing their money around, they use that as a very logical justification to say, listen, it's my money and I think it should be going this way. And if you still want that money, you're going to do what I tell you. And that's the bad end of the stick, so to speak.
Oh yeah, it's easier to get money out of somebody when you say, hey, I got this Marvel property or whatever, than it is if you got, hey, I got this original idea about this kid who drives fast, and they talk him into working with them on, like Baby Driver, basically, is what I'm trying to.
Well, like even there, or Baby Driver, you go a bit more classic, like Back to the Future. I mean, first of all, even in old Hollywood, it took about 10 years for that movie to get made because people just couldn't get around some of it. But as soon as the first few dailies not with Nicholas Stolt, but with Michael J. Fox started coming through, and they showed it off to the guys for advertising, they're like, this is going to be a hit. Like the advertising market was like, we know exactly how to sell this. And, it was a big, big movie in the 80s, and it's a beloved film to this day. But we don't get that type of mentality anymore. It's now the opposite, where you're pitching to an advertiser as opposed to hiring an advertiser to say, okay, this is the product, go sell.
Yeah. Indeed.
Yeah. To me, that sounds like incredibly lazy when you have like the marketing just saying, no, we can't sell this. So this thing that's probably going to be a massive hit, you're just going to have to do something else that we can deal with and know how to create a message out of. So,
yeah. Have any of you seen the movie Used Cars with Kurt Russell?
Oh, yeah.
We need more marketers like that guy. He just makes up a fake last name to relate to the customer and then lies their face off about the product he's selling. Like, that's kind of what you need in those days, where you already have the product. You got to get it out there. You got to do it by any means necessary, as opposed to now it would be the weird relationship where the used car salesman is going to the auto manufacturer saying, listen, you're going to make a car like this.
Yeah.
And the auto manufacturer like, well, we know how to make cars. You just know how to sell them. Why would we be listening to you of how to make a car?
No, and you're exactly right. And I think that's the problem. But isn't it ironic that part of the reason Used Cars failed theatrically is that it wasn't advertised properly, probably?
Right.
That was also part of it, yeah.
It's kind of ironic, I think.
Well, I mean, Christ's sake, look how they advertised John Carter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Look at some of the world-class movie advertising failures, especially in the last several years, where it's like, with the Marvel movies, they basically do their own marketing. They've got their own comic line. These have been characters that have been in American homes for how many decades? This is why it was a marriage made in heaven, by the way. Hollywood and Marvel movies and DC movies too was. Oh my God, a bunch of movies that like market themselves. We literally don't have to do work. Holy Christ. You know what I mean? Yeah, we still have to make the trailers. Yeah, we still have to have the hype machine and everything, but like half the work has been done already. At least
exactly.
half.
And I remember the John Carter advertisement. It was the laziest thing I'd ever seen. It was just a black poster with red lettered font of John Carter and nothing else. I'm like, nobody who doesn't know where this is coming from is gonna know that John Carter, it's John Carter of Mars and the whole Princess of Mars series and all that stuff. They're not going to pick up on that on such a blank, boring poster.
And you know who can thank for that?
Bob Iger.
No, Andrew Stanton.
Oh, Stanton.
Andrew Stanton himself is responsible for everything that went wrong with that movie. I know you have like some of his followers that stupidly believe that Disney is to blame, that they failed the movie. No, they bent over backwards for him at every single step, including the marketing, where like one marketing director actually walked out of her position in protest at how he was micromanaging the marketing campaign, saying you can't sell a movie this way, this is going to be a disaster, I cannot be here and be party to this. So a marketing executive in Disney actually quit because of Mike Rosanton's micromanagement of the marketing campaign, and it went exactly as that executive said it was going to, because he stupidly assumed some kind of immense brand recognition and loyalty and stuff like that just wasn't there. I mean, yeah, of course you could bring in me with that trailer, you could bring in Razor Fist with that trailer, but you couldn't bring in anyone else, because no one else would know of Princess of Mars today.
No, it's totally. It's like, it's one of the reasons I'm so forgiving for the Solomon Kane movie, which I think is really good.
It's a really cool movie.
Because it's like,
really cool movie.
yeah, it's not technically based on the pulps as such, the characters from the pulps, but he's becoming the character.
But that's because of the people paying the bills. They demanded an origin story because
they wanted an origin,
because of Batman Begins and Casino Royale. Those were just out, and because of that, everyone and their mother demanded that every movie that's coming now has to be an origin story, even though the source material doesn't lend itself to one. If you want to make your movie, then in order to pay for it, it has to be an origin story. So they had to conjure one. That's kind of what happened there.
Yeah, but there's still an argument to be made for it. I still think it works within that context, because I understand at least a lot of people don't know who Solomon Kane is, for Christ's sake. There are still people, I'm still getting tagged on the daily on Twitter. Holy Christ, I found out about the Solomon Kane character from your video, years. I'm still getting messages like that. So this is a character who has been in obscurity for a long time.
Yeah, he's kind of a lost character for sure, yeah.
And it's a strange one, because like a lot of people know the name, they just don't know anything else beyond that, because it's such a catchy name. Like I remember hearing it as a kid before I even got into the pulp novels, and it's like, oh, they'd use it as like an allegory or something. I'm like, oh, that's a catchy name. And then you find out at a bookstore, like, oh, there's that name, and you read the book, and like, oh, he hates heathens, he goes after all these cool, like, he's a Puritan and he kills demons and stuff. It's like, oh, this is way better than the allegory I'm hearing as a child.
Right, exactly, and that's why I'm a little more forgiving. It's like, you do have to, on some level, reintroduce these characters to the public when they've laid fallow for so long, essentially. And so in that sense, like, the last frames of that movie are pure Solomon Kane, and they make you super excited for like 2 sequels that never were made, that do not exist.
I think that movie's on Amazon Prime right now too, if I'm not mistaken.
Probably, yeah. It's freaking excellent. I believe it's free with ads on YouTube as well.
That could be. Yeah, there you go. So it's out there, folks, and I'm sure we can all recommend it here. I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but going on
what we have to do a Solomon Kane.
Yeah, what off of Andre and Razor Fist have said, then
it's a fun movie. It does have a directing tone style of like what Nolan did with Batman Begins, but it's still its own thing. And the only thing that threw me off was like the demons that come out of the mirror in the first act. I'm like, that's very obviously like of the time CG. I would have done like just a guy in a suit and then like composited him in that. But the rest of it, like, really cool. Like the acting a lot. Simple story, rescue the girl. Fun stuff.
And you even get a crucifixion in there because it's Robert E. Howard and it's the law.
Of course. And Robert E. Howard's character, they get a lot of beating and they even get crucified. So no, Razor Fist, you have to join us for a watch party of that movie one of these days. You'd be most welcome.
Absolutely. Anything pulpy, you invite me along. I'll be there with bells on.
YouTube has gotten a lot of good free movies lately. They got the 1990 Ninja Turtles. They got Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah.
So even though they're in really crappy quality, but hey, for watch parties, that helps.
Had an anniversary just the other day too.
That's true.
Billy Zane Phantom.
Yes, I know. Thanks for reminding me that I'm still working on the redux of that retrospective.
Hell yes.
Yeah, so that'll be awesome.
You're gonna talk? Did you talk about? I forget when I watched. I've said many times that was the video that introduced me to the channel, but like that was I forget if you talked about the film serial from the 40s.
I referenced it.
Yeah, it's really good, actually.
It is. It's really good. It's starring like Tyler. What was his name?
Tom Tyler,
Same guy who
played the Mummy, actually, in the Universal monster movies.
Yeah, but did you see the 1956 TV pilot? I think it was 1956.
No, I don't think I have.
I used to have it, but I've misplaced it over the years. I had like this bootleg copy of it because they actually made a pilot movie back in the 50s. The villain in it is actually Richard Keel. You know, Jaws from James Bond. He's the villain in it. Yeah.
That's amazing. I wonder what.
And I've never been able to re-find it. And that sucks to high heaven because I'd love to.
Even not on YouTube.
Yeah.
Even not on YouTube.
I want is at any point. I mean, are we all going to get canceled if we come out and say, "Hey guys, Black Panther, just a race swap of the Phantom." Hey, literally, just a race swap of the Phantom. That's all it is.
You're not totally wrong.
I mean, he's definitely a legacy family character, like that, a mantle that's passed down through the bloodline. So there's that easy identity.
And now that you mentioned
from Bengala jungle, which. Yep.
He's the king. He's got the throne.
Let me see if I can find. I was just going to say.
The throne imagery. Yeah, I remember seeing that.
His own private kingdom in the jungle in a made-up place in Africa. He's got a bunch of locals that worship him. He's the sovereign protector of it. I mean, you can go right on down the line.
And he's the one who keeps the peace between rivaling tribes.
Yes. Indeed. The further down you go, I mean, look, Stan Lee stealing an idea. I mean, this would not be.
I'm trying to find a decent picture, but yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I believe that Jack Kirby might have had something to say about that.
So, yeah, but when you mentioned that, this is the first thing I could think of is all these production photos.
Yes, look at that. I actually posted a tweet a while back that had the two movie posters side by side. The photo, the movie poster where Chadwick Boseman, may he rest in peace, was sitting on the throne, that early promo image that they turned into a poster. And then right next to the Billy Zane one where he's sitting on the throne. And it was like, oh my God. But yeah. Still awesome. I still dig Black Panther, for Christ's sake. I used to read the comics like crazy when I was a kid. But.
There's some better pictures than that, but that was one of the better quality ones, because the rest of them are really crappy quality.
Yeah.
Because that was before the internet, so there's no real good high-def pictures out there, but I'm sure I'll have to dig some up if Andre's got some in the works.
Oh, yeah, I got something in the works. Ideally, I would have had it out already, but it's been so much else going on recently, so it'll have to be over the course of summer.
Speaking of other things going on, let's get back to super chats.
Yes, one we can bring up on screen right now. It's even for Razor Fist. My countryman Paulus Plain says for 100 Norwegian krona, Midnight's Edge, I love you all. Well, thank you, and we love you too. And hey, Razor Fist, I saw your debate with Kyle Kulinski. In a debate with Kyle Kulinski and Tim Pool, who would win? P.S. Kyle Kulinski fan.
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, they're kind of similar in terms of their views, so I don't even see them having a debate personally. They're kind of similar on that. Although Tim Pool has drifted in a little more I don't know if you want to say moderate or whatever, political direction or what have you, but I don't even see them really having a whole lot to debate about, to be honest.
There you go.
Yeah. And then we have a few more we can bring up on screen. But before we do, we also have a couple of classics that I can. So let's do those first. This says for $5. I remember taking those lessons in script writing, just like Script Doctor said. And Dash Attack says, Razor Fist. When will we reach a point where woke gets dialed back? It feels like desecration is only going to get worse despite the money lost.
I mean, I think now you guys just did a fantastic video. I did a video too talking about this a little bit, but you had Cameron Pasha on. This is just
you like that one.
Yeah, it's excellent. Where you were talking about the sort of decoupling effect that's happening between Hollywood and China, which is really, at the end of the day, of course it was going to be base monetary concerns that was going to be the culprit. It's just the simple fact that Hollywood invested in China for all these years. The U.S. government, the previous administration, well, previous administration, well, I guess the current one technically, had all these concessions for China, right? Back in 2008, 2012 actually, and they had made all these concessions, and they were sort of expecting this big payday from China ultimately, and it just kind of never came. This is why I've always kind of cocked my head at, oh, they're deleting this character for the movie poster for China. Because it's like, oh, it's all about China. And I'll get comments all the time on my channel where people are like, well, of course they're doing this because they make all their money in China. And then you see what they actually make in China, and you're like, dude, they could make that in America with a bad movie on a weekend. They were getting no money out of the Chinese deal. China was just pocketing the cash and putting it back into propaganda. So it's like, it just at the end of the day became that. So I think that will have a bit of an ameliorative effect. That will sort of, it'll just slowly mollify that. But, you know, Hollywood's always going to have its virtue signaling moments, even when it's not explicitly ideological or conspiring with quasi-genocidal communist regimes. They're still, at the end of the day, going to be a bit wokeified. They always have been. That's why,
there's always going to have some sort of message in there from whatever creative wants to propagate it. I'm a fan of the ones that are as subtle as possible or a byproduct of a better story, because at least you can always ignore it a lot easier, and it doesn't feel like a preachiness to it. I mean, if you're going to go that way. But to your point, it also reminds me of just the economic concept of getting tourist dollars, so to speak. And like that can inject some good life into another country. If they have a tourist attraction, foreign money, foreign resources come in there, and you relish in the goods. And I think Disney felt that would be the case, that they could appease and create proper negotiations with those markets over there, and they got hoodwinked.
Yeah, I think Disney will be slower than the other studios to adapt to this, though. I do want to say that, because Disney still has theme parks and such in China that it has to worry about getting shut down or seized in China. You know, I don't know how much of a pretty penny they make off those, especially not in the middle of a lockdown over a disease that generated in China, incidentally. But you know, so I think the wheels for them will move a little bit slower than for, say, you know, some of the other companies, you know, Warner Brothers or the like. But I think gradually over time, that will have a somewhat positive effect. It won't be quite as blatant, let's put it that way.
Yeah, I'm pretty much of the mind of that. I think it's not going to be blatant, but yeah, Disney's going to be the last one to get out, so to speak.
Yeah. And with that, let's move on to the next ones. The Gay Rascal says, "Up, up and away into the stratosphere." And Fortunato says, "Soul Brother Rocket to Buku." So yeah, quite a pretty spaceship right there. And then Straight White Mage says, "I didn't know Charlie's Angels was coming until I saw the It Flopped videos."
Right.
And yeah, as I like to point out, Charlie's Angels flopped so badly that more women went to see Rambo Last Blood in its opening weekend.
And they were better for it. That movie ruled.
Yeah.
No, like, case in point, my girlfriend dragged me to that Rambo movie. I'm not even kidding you. Seriously. I mean, not dragged, but she was certainly the inciting party. She wanted to see that movie. She didn't even know Charlie's Angels existed.
I'll be honest, I thought the movie was better than I thought it was going to be, and then I was even more pissed, though, when I found out that the version we got here was truncated by 15 minutes and a big portion of the heart of the film was cut out in the beginning. And then, like, the movie's going, and I'm just like, wow, it's really going to go there. Like, it went places I didn't expect it to go, so it was like, it was a bit of a surprise. I mean, I know some people just shit all over it, but no, I didn't think it was a horrible movie for what it was.
Then we have. Well, I didn't see it, so I wouldn't know. But,
Oh, Charlie's Angels. I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about Rambo.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Sorry. No, I just saw the stuff. I
was like, I wonder why everybody's so fucking quiet. I'm like, am I the only one who liked this movie? Like Razorfist just loved it. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I loved it.
No, you're talking about.
That's what I was talking about. Rambo. Yeah.
You're talking about Rambo. Fuck that shit.
Fuck Charlie's Angels. Do you think I sat through Charlie's Angels? I got better shit to do with my time than that.
No, I got muted there for a second.
That movie's goddamn great. You're talking about people shitting on it. Fuck out, shit on them. Yeah. Go grab a glass coffee table, set it on their chest.
Well,
anyway.
Rambo Last Blood is a movie that I liked okay upon first watching, but it's grown on me significantly since.
Yeah, it's really good, and you should watch the director's cut.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
On Amazon,
the director's cut is the only version available.
You know what's
in
funny? Real quick,
tell the story.
You know how we found out there was a director or another version of this movie is we did a round table, and Andre, of course, being from Norway, he saw the longer version, and Mr. H was the other one, right? Who's with us, I think.
Yeah.
So he had seen the longer version.
And Matt Kadish.
Well, I was just going to say, but Matt Kadish and I, of course, being from America, saw the American version, and I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. And Matt didn't enjoy it at all. But Andre and Mr. H keep going. They're like to this point where they're just like, what fucking movie did you see, Matt? Like they literally are starting to say it at this point. Like they're like, did you see a completely different movie than we did? and then like 2 days later, I'm like, I honestly, like, we were kidding at that point, but like, no, like you guys did see a completely different version of the movie. That's why they were like, we didn't understand some of the stuff they were talking about, because I even brought up the fact that all the promotional footage was of him in the rain gear, and I'm like, that part wasn't even in the movie. And Andre's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Yes, it was. I'm like, no, it wasn't.
And that's how we found out.
Yeah, that whole bit's cut out. All that.
Yeah, because it clicked when we had that conversation about that totally
the American
wasn't
version
the movie.
Starts like 20 minutes, almost 20 minutes in where the other version starts.
Yeah, because I figured out because I was like, okay, Tom, tell me, how did the movie begin? Tell me the first scene.
Like Rambo's like riding around on a horse in circles.
And then I'm like, oh my god, that's 20 minutes into the movie. Like you've missed the entire opening sequence, the entire first act almost, the one that sets up the tone for the rest of what the movie is going to be, the one that thematically says where we're going. Of course, you cut that out.
Yeah, and it also shows what Rambo's been up to all these years too.
Yeah,
it gives you a little bit of backstory. Yeah, there's a lot there, and I watched that scene, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is like a completely different movie with that scene on the beginning.
There's actually, they cut out, he rips the guy's heart out at the end of the movie. There was actually extra shit where he ripped off their testicles and fed them with some wild boars and all kinds of extra stuff. No, I actually have not seen the director's cut version, incidentally. I just love the original. Check
out the extended version.
I watched it in theaters and I thought it was fucking incredible.
Well, no, there's this whole opening sequence with this flood, and he's trying to save these two people, and I won't ruin the whole thing for you, but like Andre said, it does set up the tone for the whole movie and kind of gives you an idea of what Rambo's been up to all these years and stuff like that. So,
right.
Yeah. Thematically, it sets up the whole movie. So it's a shame what was done to it in the US. But also on that note, Bobo Yogi says we need a Doc Savage franchise. One film made in 1975.
Weren't they talking about that recently? I remember reporting something.
There were some talks, but I don't know.
Oh, not just some talks. They had Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson had signed on to be Doc Savage.
Oh, is it happening?
And then it went into development hell. Apparently, apparently he's out now. But now Condé Nast, the people who own Doc Savage, are apparently going ahead with a TV series. It's looking like it's gonna be on Amazon.
Well, maybe they can get John Cena.
Well, if Doc Savage speaks Mandarin, I don't know. Christ.
Oh, jeez. But yeah. No, somebody said that I guess the extended cut of Rambo's on Amazon. I saw in the chat. So if you can check that out, Razorfist, I suggest it, because there's even extra stuff between the two brothers, the bad guys and stuff.
Yeah,
and there's a good 15-20 minutes that was cut out of that movie almost.
Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I do remember watching it and appreciating how quick it was. It was a very short movie. And
Yeah.
I remember I had watched several movies recently in theaters at that time that had been way too fucking long, way too long. And it was a breath of fresh air actually watching Rambo Last Blood because it was so, quickly paced. But
Well,
still,
they had the wrong time on my theatrical thing because I come out, I'm like, that's way like early. I'm like, you're right, because like the theatrical version here was like only 88 minutes or something like that.
wow, that's crazy. I am gonna have to watch that. But I've seen the director's cut on Amazon. Like I've seen it up there. I just haven't gotten around to watching it.
Yeah, it's a different experience.
Absolutely, it is.
One of those rare
Also-
cases where we talk about the director's cut, but it really isn't one because it was just the international version, basically.
Yeah, no, it's a real movie, the one that wasn't butchered for American audiences, just like Taken.
In every
Taken
Highlander movie.
Yeah, exactly. Taken also only has like one real version, and that's the one that you call extended harder cut. That's real Taken, and the other one, the one that's also released in the States, that was just butchered for the States.
Yeah. No, it's like Metropolis is stuck. This has been going on for a long time. That happened in Metropolis. That's why we've had to hunt down all the extra scenes because the only preserved version of the movie of the original Metropolis from the 20s was the American version because Paramount, I guess, held on to the masters and no other studios did. So Europe, all the film prints got destroyed. I think the Nazis had an issue with Metropolis, maybe.
They definitely hit a building that had a storage of those.
Yeah. So a lot of those
Yeah.
scenes were lost, and the only reason we wound up getting some of those back is because some random guy from Argentina, some film collector, had gone down there and got the original German version in the 3 weeks or whatever that it was in theaters.
Well, yeah, and I have the Kino release where he actually, I think it's that guy where he talks about making that trip, and I think part of it they found in, I can't remember if it was a Japanese storage facility or something like they've managed to cobble together the most complete version we have thus far, but it's still not complete. It's still only like 80%.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyhow, back to Super Chats. I know we had a couple more.
Yeah, Cesario JPN has a good question for us all. How much can a fan forgive a studio to take liberties with an IP for adaptation for the masses before it becomes a farce? The Witcher TV series and the Mortal Kombat 21 movie had tons of liberties. It's an interesting question, isn't it? Razorfist, your thoughts on that?
I didn't watch the new Mortal Kombat movie. The Witcher series was, what the hell? You got a Slavic fantasy legend, and there were multiple black characters for no reason, and they were also really strange with like how the stories were adapted. They did a lot of the short stories that were in The Last Wish. I remember that, and they were all over the place. I also, the order of the series in general of The Witcher, I found really baffling. That show got excellent reviews from a lot of people, and I'm still scratching my head over it because it was such a clusterfuck narratively. Specifically, the episode that turned into a meme with the stupid "throw a coin to your Witcher" song and the garbage, where the Edge of the World. It's based off of a short story called "The Edge of the World." And that was just out of nowhere and framed within the context of the narrative was just like, it was totally disjointed with the rest of the series. And where it falls in the original, short stories or whatever is kind of nebulous as well. So it was, I found that really, really odd. The liberties made it even stranger. Let me just put it that way. Now, I'm no fan of The Witcher for the record. For those, I mostly know the books because I had to research them in my video that's now infamous, where I was talking about the plagiarism of the Elric series. But I am very familiar with the books, and the differences between the show and the books stuck out massively. They changed a ton of shit in that show.
Yeah, pretty much. It was. I know some fans of the original source material, and they were less than pleased with it. I know that. Yeah,
there were certain things that were more or less bang on, but it was little conversation bits and quotes and such that would be straight from the books, which is kind of cool, I guess. But like then like whole scenes would just be whole cloth totally different, and the characters that were suddenly there, the whole thing with Yennefer and how they handled her origin, and it seemed like maybe they were trying to make that kind of a girl power thing, and then she fell in love with the one black dude. I forget what that guy's name was, and it was just very, very strange, very, very odd.
As far as Mortal Kombat goes, I mean, I know it upsets some people when I say this, but which storyline are they following? Because like I know some people are like, oh, there's only one or two, but I'm like, is there really? Because there's been TV series, there's been the movies, there's been
but those are just
11 different
adaptations. Like
and that's my point. And that's the
like
point I was going to get to, Andres. This is an adaptation of that. If I wanted, even if the game, depending on which character you play in the original games, the ending's always different too. Yeah. So like, I mean,
technically, if you're playing Mortal Kombat 2, right, you're killing all the main characters every time you fight them. You know what I mean?
So, I mean, I guess I was very lenient with Mortal Kombat because I had fun with it. So, I don't know.
I had a little fun with some of the fight scenes, but the rest of it just felt very, very thin.
Well, and I understand that you told me some things about that other script that you originally read that, it made more sense. They should have went the other direction, and it probably would have been an infinitely better movie, and we probably could have got a great movie out of what was a pretty good movie, right? But I'm also one who has, great loves for the 95 movie, but I'm also not so blind to the fact that movie is a mess when you look at it on the surface.
Let me introduce another example, and maybe Andre will get a little more out of this because you're from the old country, but Valerian was one that was very different.
Hell, don't even get me started.
I'm a huge fan of bande dessinée. Like
he actually sent us comics of that.
Yeah, and I love the BD. Jean-Claude Mézières is like one of my favorite creators in BD, and an absolute genius. Thank God. I think he's still alive. Knock on wood. But his original Valerian comics, like, they changed that completely. Like Valerian was originally like a time traveler in the comics. It's been a while since I read it, but he was originally like a time traveler. He met Lorelei in one of those time traveling adventures, and then she comes along with him. Fast forward to when they're making the movie, she's just there, and she's basically running the show. Like she's basically the time traveler, and he's just a random, Dimmu Keanu Reeves who follows her around like a lovesick puppy dog.
And who looks absolutely nothing like Valerian at all. I mean, that was casting gone completely haywire. Yeah. Because I don't remember the actor's name right now.
Dane DeHaan.
Dane DeHaan, yeah. I think he's a good actor, but I don't necessarily think that he's leading man material. No. And he especially was no Valerian. If anything, he was worse as Valerian than he was as the Green Goblin, and he was pretty freaking bad as the Green Goblin. I mean, that
Crystal Meth Green Goblin man, you mean?
Crystal Meth, no, or as I like to say it, like Beavis merged with Butthead on a flying skateboard.
Kill Spider-Man.
Oh, it was rough. It was rough. I mean, it's bad when he's being upstaged by Cara Delevingne's eyebrows.
Yeah, when she's the one carrying the movie. I mean, I no disrespect to Cara Delevingne.
No, she was fine in it.
No, she was great in that music video by the Antwoord, the Ugly Boy. She was fantastic in that one. So, like, she can when she wants to, and she was okay in this movie. But everything else,
it was Dane DeHaan.
It was the wrong leading man. Dane DeHaan, and
also
I don't blame him because he just got the gig, but his casting destroyed that movie.
Well, like I think during our review, I said, picture Chris Pratt in that role. Or somebody a little bit more debonair even. I think we went with we went with we said the best role. It was perfectly written for a young Bruce Campbell. Let's be real.
Yeah, he would be perfect, because here's like the thing, that Valerian, he's supposed to be a little bit thick. By thick, I mean like in the British sense. Like he's a little bit dumb.
Yeah, he's like
she's the smart one.
Yeah, he's the action man. He's Dudley Do-Right kind of in space.
Yeah, exactly.
A little bit. And it was not that at all. He's kind of following her around. She's the agent of action. And some of that, admittedly, was some of the socio-political stuff that was starting to seep into Hollywood already at that point. And nowhere is that more pristinely illustrated than the why the hell was that Rihanna sequence in there at all? What is
that movie cold?
This woman just got impaled with a gigantic steel shard, and she's literally dying, and she's like, and somebody thinks to ask as she's literally breathing her last breath, why didn't you leave him? and she's like, because I'm an illegal immigrant. Where would I go? And it's like, bitch, you want to save the immigration lectures for after we remove the car bumper from your colon? Like what? I did not get that segment at all. And just all those weird divergences, and then the weird Camino aliens from episode 2 that show up, and it was very strange. It was like none of the Valerian graphic novels and all of the Valerian graphic novels mashed together at once.
It was a beautiful mess, that's for sure. But
well, the other part too, and I don't understand this for other filmmakers when they're dealing with shape-shifting characters, is that a shape-shifting character can heal any wound. You just shape-shift into a character that doesn't get gutted because they change on a molecular level.
Or doesn't need that major organ you just had punctured, maybe.
Yeah, like they're essentially like, a liquid creature, like what you see in DS9 to a degree. I mean, unless it's just completely like a skin thing, but it wasn't. I mean, especially in Valerian, like she changed in all these weird different forms so rapidly. It's like, wait, now she's dying because
kind of like Attack of the Clones with what's her face.
At the beginning of that one.
Yeah, because when she dies too, she does the same thing. She changes into all the people she's just shape shifting into.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry,
that was poison. So I think that one I can buy a little more.
Okay, yeah, you're right. That was poison dart. That's true.
Yeah, no. All I will say about the Valerian movie is, as you pointed out, Razorfist,
Hawaiian shirts never go out of style.
Or they never were in style, and that's part of the problem. But no, as you said, it was like the comics, but it wasn't like the comics, and it was kind of right, but then it wasn't. You know what? There's a term that describes something like that. A Frankensteinian abomination.
Yes, there is.
You said the line.
Cue the emojis.
Yes, indeed.
So that's kind of what was on there. Script, do you have anything to add to that before we move on to the next one?
All I can say is that, Valerian was a disappointment. A very interesting trailer to start with, but then when you see the cast, you're like, ugh, it's weird, because I'm casually familiar with the original comics. Like, I did not read a whole lot of them, didn't get much access to them. But, I mean, there are some parts where like, oh, this is a good idea, that's cool. And then it flips around and you're just lost, wondering what the heck is going on. Why are we on this chase scene for this reason? Why do we have to go to cross different dimensions to get some sort of box or what? It just was very convoluted and confusing and hard to get into. And I was disappointed with that, because I actually enjoyed the Fifth Element. I thought that was a fun
I love the Fifth Element.
And the Fifth Element was heavily based on Valerian, which is why it's so baffling that you get the same director, who, by the way, on the Fifth Element, Mobius and Mézières did the art design on that movie. So, like, this guy not only is inspired by Valerian, he's on like a first name basis with the original creators of these old comics, and somehow he fucks up the adaptation this badly. I would not be surprised if Jean-Claude Mézières like lost his number after this movie came out. Seriously. It was a butcher job, unfortunately.
Yeah, it really was.
Interestingly enough, it's not like the way I'm talking about it. It makes it sound like it's not an entertaining movie. It is. It actually is. It's not a completely unwatchable turd, but it's just, what were they trying to do with this movie? And why is it such a cluster? Really, is what it comes down to. Why? It doesn't know what it wants to be.
I think it's because for some strange reason, instead of like, there's this adage that I like to preach, for lack of a better term, it's basically simple story or simple plot and complex characters. And that just makes things a lot easier, especially when you're dealing in genre. It's just like the plot needs to be really, really simple, and the drama has to come from the relationship between the characters and what they want. And that's how you kind of avoid messes in some ways, like Valerian or like as you were describing with The Witcher. It seems like someone else was editing again and didn't have any of the script as reference to how to put this show together.
Yeah,
There
it
you go.
certainly
And we got a
seems that
couple of.
way.
Oh, sorry, Andre.
Yeah, no, it certainly seems that way. And we have a couple of more. And
Super chats that have to do with adaptations, I was going to say here, because we got
yeah, exactly. Because we have, let's see what we have right here.
Infinity Flare was the first one I got up on screen here.
Yeah, but before that, we have Willie Woodward, who says, Andre, sometimes I got to pick your brain on the Phantom, Zorro, the Shadow, and other pulp heroes. Yeah, love talking me some pulp. That's awesome. And Infinity Flare
Razor
says,
Fist has a flair for the pulp stories.
yeah, of course. And but then Infinity Flare says unquestionable adaptations. Netflix, Vikings, Valhalla reimagined Jarl Håkon Sigurdsson into a stunning and brave black woman. Sorry, Andre.
I think that was Netflix's We Was Vikings. I think is actually
Oh, but
Netflix, Vikings, Valhalla. Okay,
Right.
I think I'm gonna give that one a miss.
yeah.
Yeah, and then there's some we can't bring up on screen here. 32 flavors of Nick Weiss. It says Razor Fist. Random topic, but any opinion on what happened with David Ellefson from Megadeth?
Oh, yeah, with what's going on. Well, we don't know the truth of the situation. For those who don't know, there was some images and such leaked of him in a physical, in like a long distance, e-sex relationship with some fan, cheating on his wife, or I don't know. It seems like maybe they have an open relationship because his wife came out and defended him afterward. It must be sad. Because the person who leaked this said that it was an underage relationship or something, and his wife immediately came out and squashed that and said, no, that's not what happened, and stay out of our business.
And for some reason, they booted him from the band over this business, which part of it I can understand, but then the more we learn about it, it's just kind of weird. I don't know. But I know
the more I hear about it, the more I hear about it, and I'm no massive Megadeth fan by any stretch of the imagination, but the more I hear about it, the more it sounds like Dave Mustaine was looking for an excuse to get rid of him already. They were having some kind of issue behind the scenes already. In fact, I think they said in the statement when they let him go for this, they literally said something to the effect of, in addition to the problems we're already having behind the, like basically, don't let the door hit you in the ass, motherfucker.
That's what I was getting at, Yeah, I remember the quote you're talking about and I'm pretty sure if I remember right, he did specify that it was more than just this kind of a thing. So it seemed like it was brewing. And again, like you, Razor Fist, I'm not the hugest Megadeth fan, but I was one of those always back in the day where I'd gravitate towards Megadeth more than I would Metallica. So, All right. And then Stephen Otten says about adaptations, that's the problem with adaptations. I read Those Who Wish Me Dead, and the movie is almost unrecognizable from it. It's hard to divorce the two. Yeah, you'll have that sometimes. Very rarely do you get a good adaptation that strays very far from the book. The only two that I can generally think of offhand that I bring up is just how Spielberg managed to just break, and it wasn't really him, it was the writers, to break down Jaws and Jurassic Park into what they were, because they're far cries from the books, but in some instances they're almost better than the book because it's the essence of what the book was, but they had the straightforward story instead of going into all these meandering other avenues.
Plus, it'd be really hard for me to believe Richard Dreyfuss at that stage would be able to get the wife of crap, I'm forgetting his name.
Well, Hooper's a totally different character in the book than he is in the movie. Like Hooper in the book is more like a suave young, like college boy, like the type of guy you'd see cleaning out your pool, as opposed to Richard Dreyfuss' character.
We were just talking about Steven Spielberg. Jurassic Park: The Lost World. Our boy Spielberg did a race swap in the opposite direction with Eddie Carr there, who was supposed to be black. Yikes!
I forgot about that. That's true.
Yeah. which I love that movie personally. I think that's
I
a
do
pretty
too.
good adaptation as well. Although the weird shit with the gymnastics and the velociraptors.
Yeah, that's where the movie goes off the rails. But
That's a
there's-
Spielbergism.
I was going to say,
That is.
there's bits in that last 15 minutes, though, 20 minutes or so, that really I love, especially the scene with the raptors coming through the field, and then the bit all the San Francisco stuff.
So good. I love that stuff. I remember when the movie came out, pretty much everyone's opinion was, what after it went to San Diego, it got worse. And I was like,
Or San Diego.
about?
Did I say San Francisco? I meant San Diego. My bad.
Whatever. Yeah, I was like, what are you talking about? That's when it turned into King Kong. You leave this movie alone. It's a masterpiece.
Exactly. And that's what he's always wanted to do. He wanted to make King Kong.
Yeah.
That's the one movie we did miss, is Spielberg's King Kong. No, instead he's making fucking West Side Story of all things. Go figure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Given his modern politics, it'll probably be what, Antifa versus the Proud Boys?
Actually, it looks almost like a shot-for-shot remake of the original from the trailer.
Really? Interesting.
Almost like the same angles and everything. It was like, why did they even bother? But anyhow, the only difference is they actually have Hispanic people playing like most of the roles this time, instead of it being brown face, or however you want to put it. Infinity Flare says, on questionable adaptation. Oh, we already got that one.
Yeah, we got that one, but I have one right here.
Here you go.
Perilous Plane says,
Yeah.
I love Elon Musk. He is denying Jeff Bezos' space power. Elon Musk is a James Bond villain. Long live the villain. I think they're all Bond villains, if you ask me. But yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I was wondering where the heck is Bond at this point, right?
Yeah, exactly. He's the one missing from the equation. But it's still good observation, Paris.
He's problematic.
You mean her?
Oh.
Point. Absolutely. And then let's see, we have
Classic ones.
yeah, and then we have and then we, from Alien Xenomorph, we got $5, but the message has been redacted. But thanks for the donation in any event. And then I want to see if there were some others that we missed here. I think we may have been. I'm just going to do the last refresh.
Might have been 2 or 3, I think, that we may have missed.
Yeah, and make sure that we get them. We got the one from Stephen Otten. We got Perilous. Then I actually do believe that we are up to speed, because the last one was from Infinity Flare.
Well, then I want to take the moment to thank Script Doctor for his time, and of course Razorfist for hopping in. It's a pleasant surprise, as always, when you get the chance to.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure when you do. And yeah, I look forward to you hopping on for a Solomon Kane watch party.
That would be sweet.
Indeed. I always love coming down and talking giant rocket penises with you fellas.
Yeah,
we always have big surprises.
Good times.
Exactly.
Well, it's rocket penises now, and it's going to be space station vaginas, 50 years later.
Right. All right, guys. I'm going to bounce.
All right. Well, thanks for being here, man. We appreciate it.
Indeed. Thanks for having me.
Before you go, Willie does have something to say about the Jurassic Park you may want to.
Oh, yeah?
JP, the movie blows compared to the book. The book would have been awesome, rated R, stuck in some of the stuff in JP book. In Lost World film was so neutered, fuck Spielberg, so overrated. Honestly, from my recollection of the Lost World book, is the Lost World book sucked ass.
Dude, I love that book. I remember
I was
reading it.
pissed at
now,
it.
granted, I was fucking 12 when I read it, but still, I enjoyed it. I remember. I remember it was a little. It was not that distant from the movie. I remember some scenes and sequences and such actually being in the book that were in the movie or whatever. But no, you shut your whore mouth. I enjoy that movie, and I enjoy that book.
Yeah, I know the book is way different, Willie, especially the first one. I remember more so, but at least some of that stuff made its way into the third film, and there's just a lot of stuff in that book that just doesn't need to be in the movie. It's just kind of meandering, and there's a lot of bits about how the dinosaurs were made and stuff you just don't need.
Oh, yeah. Like literally if it was based more off the book, like 30% of the movie would have been that Mr. DNA tutorial.
That's what I was saying. Yeah. They managed to cram so much good. That I was glad when they did that, because you got so much information out of that 10 minutes that, like you just said, was a good 30% of the book, probably.
Right.
And on top of that, like Jurassic Park is really just like the second take on the same premise of what Westworld was.
Absolutely.
And I love the original Westworld.
I do too. Yeah. If you haven't checked out Westworld, there you go. Check that out. That's a great film. Even Future World has its moments.
Yeah.
But
All right,
with
guys,
that,
I am going to bounce. Thank you for having me.
yeah, check out Razorfist's channel, and I'm sure he's got some good stuff on the way.
Indeed.
I see you always playing video games whenever I check it.
I'm cranking out. I'm cranking out a video game review sometime this week. Got a bunch of games have just come out, so I got reviews coming and movie reviews coming, and lots and lots.
Can't wait.
Yep.
Oh, and when's the next Shadowcast episode dropping, sir?
That's coming sometime in the next week, because we're about due for that. I already read the book that I'm going to be reviewing, and so I'm all set on that one. So stay tuned, you whores.
All right. Can't wait for that. Take care, Razorfist, and thanks for being here.
Later.
All right. And with that, I think it's time for some...
Yeah. Before then, I'd also want to say thank you to Script Doctor for joining us. It's always a pleasure when you have the time.
Oh, speaking of Script Doctor, Paulie just dropped a video over on Latino Slant with Script Doctor, where you guys reviewed the first, what was it, 6 episodes? How many episodes now?
We went over the first 8 episodes of Superman and Lois, just shooting the breeze on it, little thoughts and criticisms and compliments of what that show's doing. Go over to Paulie's channel at Latino Slant to see that. I've retweeted the link just now. That was a lot of fun, and we can't wait to do the back 8 once that's when that is done.
There you go. So check that out, guys, and be sure to check out Razorfist, check out Midnight's Edge Espanol, check out Script Doctor's channel. Even though he's been real busy with other things lately, I'm sure you'll still be posting something at some point. But it's been a little while.
As soon as those projects are done, I'll be back to the reviews and things.
There you go.
Yeah.
Otherwise, just stay
tuned
here.
Say thanks to everyone that's been watching us today. So thanks to everyone in the audience, to everyone that's been there sending messages and making the community what it is. Those that have been sending super chats and helping to keep our lights on. We're going to have some scripted videos coming for you later this week, and an explanation on the whole Bob Iger situation coming hopefully tomorrow. Also, be sure to check out Toxic Femininity later tonight.
That's right.
That should be a real doozy in light of Marvel and their misnaming of the one of the many different diverse Captain Americas that they named something that Jeff Bezos might have named her.
Yeah, and Deadline has some numbers now on Cruella, at least from Samba TV, so I'm sure the ladies will get into that too. Doesn't sound like Cruella is doing much better than Mulan, though. Spoilers. Actually, probably not half as good, which we all know Mulan didn't do that well. So, I think we're kind of right about that whole sequel announcement shit. Yeah. But I'm sure the ladies will get into that later. And tomorrow, we are going to be back on Midnight's Edge After Dark at 6 p.m. Central. So check that out as well, guys. Till then, here's some
Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given. Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given.